Chapter 1974. Darkness. Chapter 1974. Darkness. That person actually went over. What's going on? How did he rush out earlier on? I didn't see it clearly. It was as though he teleported over. What's his background? When the crowd around the lake saw that, a commotion broke out. The fat and skinny old men had grim expressions as well. Even with their eyesight, they could not see clearly how Xueqi managed to break through the obstruction of the scarlet-black squid and arrive on the lone island. This lad is rather capable. The skinny old man sent a voice transmission to the fat old man. If that lad can really pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Hee. The fat old man did not continue and merely laughed with a fervent gaze and an excited expression. Above the lone island, Xueqi controlled the rock wings and descended slowly, releasing his spirit consciousness to check out the situation on the island. As though she sensed something, Tang Zi struggled and distanced herself from Xueqi hurriedly, lowering her head in silence. I owe you another favor again. A moment later, Tang Zi spoke. Initially, she had already returned Xueqi a favor. However, she now owed him another not long after. Tang Zi was a little flustered. She had a stubborn personality and was extremely headstrong, not willing to owe anyone a favor. Initially, she wanted to repay this person's kindness as soon as possible and have nothing to do with him anymore. However, for some reason, her relationship with his person was entangled and she fell even deeper within. It's fine. Xueqi replied casually. My target is the 7 glow immortal ginseng as well. I merely saved you in passing earlier on. Don't take it to heart. Tang Zi clenched her fists slightly. The more Xueqi said that, the more she could not let it go. There's something strange about this island. Be careful. Xueqi's voice sounded once more, causing Tang Zi's heart to skip a beat as she calmed down from her thoughts. The 7 glow immortal ginseng was located in the center of the island. Out of caution, Xueqi descended at the edge of the lone island. However, after he descended on the lone island, the eyeless fishes and scarlet-black squid did not chase after him. The scarlet-black squid was extremely furious and slapped the lake with its hundreds of tentacles, creating massive waves. However, that demon beast did not dare to approach the lone island at all. Yet, when Xueqi released his spirit consciousness and scanned the lone island, he did not discover any other life. Strange. Xueqi murmured softly and walked carefully in the direction of the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi followed behind as well. There were many bushes on the island that were as tall as a person. Before long, the two of them disappeared from the line of sight of many cultivators. The island was not big. However, out of caution, Xueqi took 2 hours to reach the 7 glow immortal ginseng. The two of them did not encounter any danger the entire time. Xueqi stopped 100 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng and did not continue approaching. Through the bushes in front of him, he could see an immortal ginseng the size of an infant's arm. It shone with 7 rays of light and had a domineering spirit qi, emitting a rich medicinal fragrance. There doesn't seem to be any danger, Tang Zi said softly. Something's not right. Xueqi's expression turned grim. Although he did not discover any danger in the vicinity and his spirit perception did not even warn him, he felt that something was amiss. Xueqi scanned his surroundings a few times but still found nothing. What sort of an environment can nurture a treasure like the 7 glow immortal ginseng? Suddenly, Xueqi asked. Tang Zi said, this is a legendary immortal herb. I'm not really sure, but the amount of energy required to nurture such an utmost treasure is unimaginable. There's nothing special about this lone island and I can't see anything unique about it either. I wonder how it managed to nurture such an immortal herb. Xueqi pondered for a moment but could not think of a reason. Tang Zi said, why don't I go get it? If I can pluck it, I'll give it to you. Xueqi glanced sideways and his heart skipped a beat. Although Tang Zi did not say it explicitly, she merely wanted to return him a favor. I'll go. Xueqi smiled gently. He had some treasures and many trump cards. Even if he encountered any danger, he would have a chance to escape. Taking a deep breath of air, Xueqi pushed aside the bushes in front of him and walked slowly towards the 7 glow immortal ginseng. 90 feet. 70 feet. 50 feet. The closer Su Zimo was to the 7-glow immortal ginseng, the more nervous he became. However, there was no activity around him and it was frighteningly quiet. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was only 30 feet away from the 7-glow immortal ginseng. There was still no danger. Not daring to be careless, Su Zimo maintained his vigilance and continued to approach slowly. 10 feet. As long as he took 2 more steps, the 7-glow immortal ginseng would be within reach. Su Zimo became excited as well and took a step forward. Right then, a change happened. The surrounding space seemed to tremble. Immediately after, an extremely pure and cold power spread out around the 7-glow immortal ginseng. To Su Zimo, the void before him was like a blank piece of paper with a drop of pitch-black ink. Thereafter, the ink spread and extended continuously. Su Zimo's eyes widened. The darkness extended and devoured everything in its surroundings. The bushes around the 7-glow immortal ginseng were swept by the darkness and vanished completely, becoming a part of it. As though they sensed something, the many eyeless fishes as well as the scarlet-black squid burrowed into the depths of the lake and disappeared. Even the lake water could not withstand the pressure. The waves that were surging earlier on calmed down in the blink of an eye. Look! Someone pointed to the lake and exclaimed. The entire lake seemed to have been splashed with thick ink and turned pitch black, emitting a cold aura that was sinister. On the lone island, Su Zimo's feet seemed to have fallen into a swamp and he could not move at all. When he saw the darkness surging towards him and his spirit perception warning him, Su Zimo released his extreme speed divine power and condensed the rock wings. Even so, he could not escape. It was as though his body had fallen into a bottomless abyss and he could not break free no matter how he struggled. His spirit consciousness moved and he wanted to summon the hell suppression tripod. However, his spirit consciousness seemed to have been devoured by the darkness and lost connection with the hell suppression tripod. He could not release the true Dragon 9 flashes and many other secret skills. Su Zimo could only watch helplessly as the darkness ahead surged over. Su Zimo! Tang Zi's exclamations sounded from behind. Don't come over! Su Zimo roared. Anyone who came forth would be trapped in such a situation. When the darkness swept over, Su Zimo's extended right leg was the first to make contact. Su Zimo lowered his head and his pupils constricted in disbelief. His right foot was the first to disappear after being swept by the darkness. There was no pain. There was no blood. However, Su Zimo knew clearly that his right foot was gone. That was because he could not feel his right foot at all. His flesh and bones were gone, devoured completely by the darkness and became a part of it. Immediately after was his calf. The darkness devoured at an extremely fast speed and the next moment, Su Zimo's entire right leg vanished. Chapter 1975. Escape. Chapter 1975. Escape. Although there was no pain, the feeling was way too terrifying and despairing. In the upper world, one had to cultivate to become an earth immortal before they could regrow their limbs and become a heaven immortal. But now, Su Zimo was only a grade 9 black immortal. Furthermore, not a single drop of blood appeared after he was devoured by the darkness. Even if a heaven immortal came, it would be useless. In the darkness, the only light was the immortal ginseng that emitted a rainbow glow. At that moment, even the immortal ginseng that was initially filled with exuberant life force looked demonic in Su Zimo's eyes. Could that power of darkness be released by the 7-glow immortal ginseng? What should I do? Is the Green Lotus true body truly going to die here today? Dai Yu and the human emperor had told him that the upper world was even more dangerous than Tianhuang mainland. After he ascended to the upper world, he encountered countless life and death dangers and almost died each time. In more than 1,000 years, he had not even ventured out of a single region of the heavenly world, the 9-firmament immortal domain, let alone explore the vast trichiliocosm. Countless thoughts flashed through Su Zimo's mind and he felt indignant. Instantly, darkness enveloped him and devoured his figure whole. Suddenly, Su Zimo's left eye turned pitch black and his pupil disappeared. Instead, a gigantic pitch black vortex appeared with a cold aura. the power released by Su Zimo's left eye was extremely similar to the power of darkness in the surroundings. In fact, it was even purer and more condensed. It was the Nether Glow Stone. Nobody knew the origin of the Nether Glow Stone. There were rumors that the stone came from the upper world. Some people said that the stone came from an illusory major kiliacosm. However, no matter what, the stone did possess the power of extreme darkness and was even devouring the surrounding darkness. As the power of darkness in his body disappeared, Su Zimo's figure reappeared. Only, the absorption speed of the Netherglow stone was extremely slow. However, the darkness of power surged over continuously, and the Netherglow stone could not devour and refine all the power of darkness. With that, the corrosion of darkness and the devouring by the Netherglow created a temporary balance within Su Zimo's body. Although Su Zimo's figure appeared, it was only a portion of it. To be precise, only a jade green skeleton was revealed. This skeleton was created by Su Zimo using the creation Green Lotus back in the underground palace of Tianhuang mainland. Although the bones were still present, the flesh on them had vanished completely, devoured by the darkness. On the other side, Tang Zi looked at the darkness ahead with a dim gaze. As an assassin, she had to have a cold-blooded heart and not be restrained by emotions or external objects. The two of them had not known each other for long. Initially, Tang Zi thought that Su Zimo was just a slightly special passerby in her life. However, at that moment, when she saw Su Zimo buried in the darkness, she felt a sadness that she had not felt for many years. In that instance, countless images of her interactions with Su Zimo flashed through her mind. To her surprise, she realized that she had spoken to this person more than everything she had spoken in the past few hundred years. As Tang Zi thought about it, a layer of mist gradually appeared in her eyes. Right then, a jade green glow shone on the mist in her eyes. Tang Zi looked up instinctively. Ah! Tang Zi's expression changed as she exclaimed. The scene before her was way too shocking. Two different lights shone in the darkness. Right at the front was the 7 rays of light released by the 7 glow immortal ginseng. 10 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng stood a human-shaped skeleton. It was jade green and emitted a resplendent glow, filled with vitality as it fought against the surrounding darkness. Su Zimo? Tang Zi could not help but call out softly. However, the path ahead was shrouded by darkness and even sound would be devoured instantly. He's not dead. Tang Zi's expression turned nervous. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, she would not have imagined that a cultivator's bones would grow to such an extent. More than that, she could not imagine that although the flesh on the skeleton had vanished, it still emitted a tremendous amount of life force. In the darkness, Su Zimo could vaguely sense that the power of darkness around him was gathering. The absorption speed of the Netherglow stone was far inferior to the speed of darkness condensation. If he continued to linger in the darkness, even the Netherglow stone would not be able to protect him. Instinctively, Su Zimo moved. Immediately after, he was delighted. That was because the Netherglow stone absorbed the power of darkness in his body and allowed him to regain some freedom. Although his movement was slow within the darkness, at the very least, he was not immobile as before. Su Zimo was prepared to leave the darkness. However, his gaze suddenly landed on the immortal ginseng that was emitting a rainbow glow. Since I've already come this far, I might as well take the gamble. A decisive look flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he made a decision instantly. His flesh had already been devoured by the darkness and it would be a huge loss if he retreated just like that. He did not know how long it would take for his flesh to regrow. Furthermore, he was just a skeleton that was neither human nor ghost right now. If anyone saw it, it would be easy to expose the secret of the Green Lotus true body. At that thought, Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he extended his arm slowly and grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng. He was 10 feet away from the 7 glow immortal ginseng, and his arm could not reach it at all. Crackle! Suddenly, the bones of Su Zimo's arm expanded by 10 feet and his jade green bone palm grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng instantly. Up! Su Zimo hollered and exerted strength in his arm, pulling the 7 glow immortal ginseng out of the ground. There was a large amount of mud on the roots. Pulling out the 7 glow immortal ginseng created a huge pit on the ground. Su Zimo grabbed the 7 glow immortal ginseng, and was about to retreat when his gaze inadvertently swept past the pit and paused. That's... He focused his gaze and looked for a moment. As though he recalled something, he shuddered. The surrounding power of darkness surged and turned even colder and purer. Su Zimo's breathing turned extremely heavy and his bones creaked. He did not dare to hesitate and retreated continuously. After he retreated dozens of feet away, the power of darkness gradually dissipated and surged into the pit. What happened earlier seemed like an illusion. However, Su Zimo had experienced it personally and could deeply understand how terrifying that power of darkness was. The surrounding bushes disappeared completely. A radius of 100 feet turned into a vacuum. If not for the netherglow stone, he would have vanished from this world completely like the bushes. Chapter 1976. Gathering. Chapter 1976. Gathering. How are you? Tang Zi's voice sounded from behind and Su Zimo turned around. Tang Zi was startled. Right now, Su Zimo was only a human skeleton without any facial features or flesh. He was extremely terrifying. Tang Zi was long prepared. Even so, she was shocked by Su Zimo's left eye. It was like a black hole that emitted a cold and dark aura. Embedded in Su Zimo's eye socket, it seemed to be able to suck in one's soul. Tang Zi merely took a single glance and felt her consciousness blur. As though he sensed something, Su Zimo lowered his head slightly and did not continue staring at Tang Zi. After a while, the darkness in his left eye gradually dissipated. Hurry and eat this 7 glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi said hurriedly, this immortal herb can revive the dead and flesh the bones. The flesh that you lost can definitely be nourished with the help of the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Su Zimo nodded and sat down in a lotus position without hesitation. He placed the 7 glow immortal ginseng into his mouth and bit off half of it. The 7 glow immortal ginseng did not have the bitterness of herbs. Instead, it was sweet. Su Zimo chewed a few times and swallowed it. A warm current flowed down and an unimaginable amount of essence energy exploded in his stomach and flowed through his entire body. The energy was way too powerful. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly and rays of light spewed out. Tang Zi merely absorbed some essence qi from the 7 glow immortal ginseng nearby, and felt her injuries heal slightly. Su Zimo's body was burning and every single inch of his bones felt itchy. He was delighted. He knew that the itch was a change that could only happen when flesh was born. Su Zimo lowered his head and saw that a thin blood membrane had already grown on the surface of his jade green bones. Rich essence energy was still colliding and condensing on it. His flesh was recovering at a visible speed. Just as Su Zimo was about to devour the remaining half of the 7 glow immortal ginseng, he paused and pondered for a moment before sealing the remaining half and putting it away in his storage bag. Actually, the energy of half of the 7 glow immortal ginseng was already extremely terrifying. If not for the fact that Su Zimo was the Green Lotus true body and a supreme god of the Flora race, the energy of the half 7 glow immortal ginseng might have caused him to explode. But now, the Green Lotus true body was growing rapidly as he absorbed the energy of the 7 glow immortal ginseng continuously. In reality, not long after Su Zimo broke through to grade 9 Black Immortal, he encountered the Spirit Mine Blood Calamity and was taken away by the Green Cloud County Governor. If he wanted to break through to the Earth Essence realm, it would take at least hundreds or even 1,000 years. Although the Green Lotus true body absorbed heaven and earth essence qi at a fast speed, the amount of essence qi energy required to grow was extremely shocking. If the energy in that half of the 7 glow immortal ginseng was completely absorbed and refined by the Green Lotus true body, it would be equivalent to hundreds of years of effort. If the Green Lotus true body could break through to the earth essence realm, Su Zimo's combat strength would increase significantly. This was not only an increase in cultivation realm, but also a transformation of the creation Green Lotus itself. When he underwent tribulation transcendence and ascended, the Green Lotus true body grew to grade 9 and created an unfathomable treasure that could be used for both offense and defense, the 9 Heavens Living Soil. The 9 Heavens Living Soil originated from the creation Green Lotus to begin with. This meant that as the cultivation realm of the Green Lotus true body increased, the power of the 9 Heavens Living Soil would increase as well. If the Green Lotus true body could grow to grade 10, there would be another treasure as well. Su Zimo did not know what exact form it would take either. In his consciousness, the refinement of the hell suppression tripod continued. Su Zimo could clearly see that most of the cracks on the third tripod wall had healed and the pattern etched on it had already formed an embryonic form. One of the 4 sacred beasts, the Black Tortoise. At that time, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra would be even more perfect and the Black Tortoise sacred soul would leave behind its inheritance. At that time, Su Zimo would undergo a complete transformation and his combat strength would increase significantly. Of course, there was a prerequisite for that. He had to get out of the Emperor's tomb alive. As time passed by, Su Zimo's flesh grew. After half a day, his appearance and features gradually appeared. After a day, his flesh grew continuously and his skin regrew. It looked as fair and tender as a newborn baby with a green glow flowing on it. In Tang Zi's eyes, the green lotus true body was flawless and crystalline. Sitting in a lotus position, it looked like a jade green lotus. Tang Zi retracted her gaze. Although she could tell that Su Zimo's body was extraordinary, she could not recognize the origin of the green lotus true body given her experience. The cultivators around the lake did not disperse after a day. Instead, more gathered. Cultivators of various factions headed over. In the northwest direction of the lake, dozens of cultivators were gathered. Their leader was not old, but he had an indescribably noble aura. "What's going on over there?" the person asked softly with his hands behind his back and sharp eyes. "Commander Yun Ting, I heard that a 7-glow immortal ginseng grew on the lone island in the lake," a cultivator at the side said. Yun Ting was unmoved. "There must be danger lurking around such a treasure." The cultivator said, "Commander, you are right. There are many eyeless fishes and a scarlet-black squid guarding this lake and many people have already died. However..." The person paused for a moment. "I heard that a man and a woman from the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom have used some unknown method to break through the obstruction and descended on the lone island." "Oh!" Yun Ting raised his brow in surprise. The cultivator continued, "The man and woman should have obtained the 7-glow immortal ginseng. However, a day has passed and they haven't come out of the lone island. Could the 2 of them have eaten the 7-glow immortal ginseng?" another person asked. "Absolutely impossible." Yun Ting shook his head gently and smiled. "Even my body can't withstand the energy contained in the 7-glow immortal ginseng. If the 2 of them really dare to consume it, they'll be courting death. Let's go take a look too," Yun Ting said in a deep voice and headed in the direction of the lake. A gentle breeze blew past and the badge on his waist fluttered. There were 2 words written on it: Zixian. One of the 3 immortal kingdoms of the divine firmament immortal domain, the Zixian Immortal Kingdom. On the other side, another group of cultivators walked over. Their leader was an old man with a walking stick and a badge on his waist with the words Yen Yang written on it. The Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom. "Elder Gu, do you need me to snatch the 7-glow immortal ginseng later?" a black-robed man behind the old man asked softly. "There are many people gathered here and the situation is unknown. If you really snatch the 7-glow immortal ginseng, you'll easily become a public enemy," Old Man Gu said indifferently. "So what if I become a public enemy?" The black-robed man sneered. "I, Fang Xian, am invincible in the lower worlds and ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. I've never met a match in the Black Essence realm. Even if they join forces, I'll be fearless." "Hee hee." Old Man Gu laughed oddly. "There's quite a bit of commotion here and many people have already been attracted. Notwithstanding the fact that the 3 immortal kingdoms are gathered, even people from the 4 immortal sects have appeared. We should keep a low profile." Chapter 1977. And if I refuse? Chapter 1977. And if I refuse? Old Man Gu glanced at Fang Xian. "Although you're invincible in the Black Essence realm of the Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom, you might not be able to dominate the divine firmament immortal domains. Do you know who he is?" Old Man Gu pointed to the young man leading the Zixian Immortal Kingdom and asked slowly. "I don't recognize him." Fang Xian frowned slightly. Could that person have ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation as well? "Hee hee." Old Man Gu smiled. That child's name is Yun Ting and he's from the upper world. The surname Yun. He's from the royal family of the Xian Immortal Kingdom. Fang Xian asked with a frown. Old man Gu nodded slightly. Yun Ting is not only from the royal family, he's also the youngest son of the Xian Immortal King. He's a prince and is dearly loved by the couple. Fang Xian was even more puzzled and asked, why would someone of his noble status come to the emperor's tomb personally? I don't know about that. Old man Gu shook his head. Fang Xian pondered for a moment and smiled. I think he's just a rookie who doesn't know what's good for him. That must be why he came to the emperor's tomb. Old man Gu harumphed coldly. Don't look down on the fact that this child is only around 200 years old. He was destined to be extraordinary from his birth. This lad was born with a phenomenon. The moment he was born, the sound of a sword buzzing echoed for 3 days, lingering in the ears. At 100 years old, he comprehended a divine power of the Tao of the sword. That is extremely rare in the world. The Xian Immortal King and his wife even collected countless treasures to nourish his tendons, bones, flesh and blood. There's no doubt that the #1 black immortal in this emperor's tomb is Yun Ting. You're not his match either. When he heard that, Fang Xian was indignant. No dermic treasure is useful in the emperor's tomb. Even if he knows how to use a sword, he can only fight barehanded here and his combat strength will be greatly reduced. Before we fight, nobody can determine who will be the victor. There's no need to argue. Old man Ge's expression darkened as he slammed his walking stick heavily. How about you take a clear look at his status? Even if you can truly defeat him, you will have to die 10 times over if you even hurt a single hair of his. Fang Xian lowered his head and clenched his fists without arguing. A day and night passed. Su Zimo opened his eyes slowly and heaved a sigh of relief. The flesh on his body had already returned to normal and the darkness in his left eye had vanished, as though it had never appeared. In just a day and night of cultivation, he had already reached the peak of the level 9 Black Essence realm and was only a step away from breaking through to the Earth Essence realm. The energy of half of the 7 glow immortal ginseng was way too great, and there was still a portion left in his body. This was the Emperor's tomb and was not suitable for him to continue cultivating. Su Zimo stopped after recovering his flesh. You're fine now? Although Tang Zi was worried about Su Zimo, there was no expression on her face and her tone had returned to its usual coldness. Su Zimo nodded and turned to look at the mud pit where the 7 glow immortal ginseng was originally, deep in thought. What's wrong? Tang Zi could not help but ask when she saw Su Zimo's strange expression. Su Zimo pointed to the mud pit in the distance and said softly, there seems to be a corpse down there. He still had lingering fear when he recalled the scene of the corpse. That corpse gave him an indescribable fear and pressure. Even when he saw the corpse of King Feng Xian back then, the fear and pressure was not as strong. Tang Zi's pupils constricted when she heard that. I got it. Tang Zi said, be it the lake or this island, there's nothing strange about the surroundings. The reason why the 7 glow immortal ginseng was born was because of that corpse. The corpse provided the nutrients to nourish a supreme treasure like the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi said slowly, this corpse was definitely at least a king when he was alive to be able to nourish a 7 glow immortal ginseng. The darkness earlier on should have been emitted by that corpse. Su Zimo said deeply. Since we've already obtained the 7 glow immortal ginseng, let's leave first, Tang Zi said. Su Zimo nodded. He did not want to experience that darkness again. Given his cultivation, it was already extremely fortunate that he could escape alive. Why aren't they out yet? Beside the lake, Li Tian was getting impatient. The shrubs on the lone island were dense and the cultivators waiting by the lake did not know what was going on either. However, everyone could clearly see that the 7 rays of light that belonged to the 7 glow immortal ginseng had vanished. This meant that someone had already plucked the immortal ginseng. Look, they're out. Right then, a man and woman rose from a lone island far away and flew towards the shore. It was Su Zimo and Tang Zi. Odd enough, the bloodthirsty eyeless fishes and scarlet-black squid from earlier on did not appear throughout their journey. Even Su Zimo and Tang Zi were puzzled, let alone the cultivators on the shore. How could this be? Tang Zi murmured softly. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and vaguely guessed an answer. Without the obstruction of demon beasts, the two of them arrived at the shore before long. There were many cultivators around the lake and various factions were gathered, staring at the two of them. The attention of everyone formed an invisible pressure. However, both of them were calm and expressionless. That was Tang Zi's nature. No matter how many people she faced, she was expressionless. Su Zimo was used to storms and naturally, such a scene could not suppress him. Fellow Taoists, it seems like you've already obtained the 7-glow Immortal Ginseng. Congratulations! Far away, the young man in the lead of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom cupped his fists and declared, "I'm Yun Ting of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom. I wonder if you guys have any intention of selling this Immortal Ginseng. You can name any price you want. If you want to let it go, why don't you open it for bidding openly so that everyone will have a chance?" Another cultivator said. That's right. That suggestion attracted the agreement of many cultivators. You guys can't beat me. Yun Ting smiled gently. No matter the price, I can make the decision and add 30%. Instantly, the discussions around them quietened down. Those who entered the emperor's tomb did not have high statuses. Even the fat and skinny old men were only servants of Prince Yuan Zhua. The young man before them was an actual prince. Even if their wealth was added together, it would not be as much as this person. Seeing that many cultivators were silent, Yun Ting was pleased and cupped his fists. Thank you for letting me win. Prince Yun Ting, I'm afraid we'll have to disappoint you. The skinny old man said slowly, this 7-glow Immortal Ginseng was obtained by the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and will not be let go. Yun Ting shrugged his shoulders slightly, seemingly unconcerned. The fat old man looked at Su Zimo and Tang Zi and asked softly, who has the 7-glow Immortal Ginseng? Hand it over to me for safekeeping first. Why? Su Zimo raised his brow slightly and asked. The skinny old man urged with an impatient expression, don't ask so many questions. Hurry and hand over the 7-glow Immortal Ginseng. Prince Yuan Zhua said that if we obtain the treasures in the emperor's tomb, we can take them for ourselves. What do you guys mean by that? Su Zimo asked with a fake smile. A killing intent flashed through the skinny old man's eyes. The fat old man took a deep breath and controlled his temper, saying in a low voice, you're now the target of everyone. It's not safe to leave the 7-glow Immortal Ginseng with you. It's only safe in our hands. Hand it over when you're asked to. Stop with your nonsense. Unable to hold it in, Li Tian glared at Su Zimo and hollered. And if I refuse? Su Zimo asked with an indifferent expression. Chapter 1978. Kill. Chapter 1978. Kill. The expressions of the fat and skinny old men darkened at the same time. The other cultivators were shocked as well. Su Zimo's words were clearly a provocation to the fat and skinny old men. However, the two of them represented Prince Yuan Zhua, the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom and supreme authority and strength. Ha ha! Yun Ting clapped and smiled. Interesting. This person is truly bold. On the other side, Old Man Gu of the Yen Yang Immortal Kingdom gloated. The Great Jin Immortal Kingdom is going to fight among themselves. Let's watch the show. What did you just say? The skinny old man glared at Su Zimo with a cold gaze and asked icily. I'm old and my ears are a little bad. I didn't hear you clearly earlier on. Repeat it for me. The fat old man sneered. Su Zimo, don't forget your status. You're just a lowlife. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo's reaction made both of them feel humiliated and murderous. The other cultivators shook their heads gently and looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a dead man. Only Tang Zi lowered her head expressionlessly, as though her mind was elsewhere. Exalted immortals, please calm down. Leave this person to me. Li Tian could tell the intentions of the fat and skinny old men and stood out immediately, saying in a deep voice, I'll take his life within 10 moves. All right. The fat old man nodded. If you kill this person, I'll definitely report it to His Highness and record it as a merit for you. Li Tian was delighted. The reason why he stood out at this moment was to leave a good impression on the two old men, so that they would put in a good word for him in front of Prince Yuan Zhua. Li Tian walked towards Su Zimo and shook his neck, letting out a faint sound. With a ferocious gaze, he grinned. Although the 7-glow immortal ginseng is a supreme utmost treasure, it's a pity that you won't be alive to keep it. The two of them were getting closer. The surrounding cultivators dispersed. Everyone present had survived the 10 absolute hell and naturally knew that Li Tian's bloodline and physique were extremely strong and ferocious in melee combat. Su Zimo has lost his final chance. If he had made use of that powerful movement technique from before, he might have been able to deal with Li Tian. However, he has no chance of escaping at this distance. In my opinion, it might end within 3 moves. The two of them were less than 10 feet apart, but Su Zimo was still motionless, as though he did not sense any danger. Many cultivators shook their heads. Su Zimo's expression was calm as he looked at Li Tian before him and said indifferently, "This has nothing to do with you. Don't provoke me." Ha 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 ha. Li Tian reared his head in wild laughter. Suddenly, the laughter stopped abruptly. At the same time, Li Tian charged forward and arrived before Su Zimo in the blink of an eye, punching the latter's head. Raging flames burned on his fist. The speed of that punch was so fast that it was like a meteor falling with a terrifying might. Su Zimo raised his palm unhurriedly, but it was just enough to block Li Tian's fist. Piak! When that punch struck Su Zimo's palm, all the power vanished like a clay ox entering the sea. Even the flames on Li Tian's fist were mostly extinguished, as though they were suppressed. Li Tian's expression changed slightly. Right then, a ball of pure white flame spewed out from Su Zimo's palm and engulfed Li Tian's fist instantly. Southern Mingli Fire. That was a fire-dermic formulation imparted by the vermilion bird's sacred soul. Ah! Li Tian shrieked. In the blink of an eye, his fist was burned beyond recognition by the Southern Mingli Fire, revealing the white bones beneath. What was even more frightening was that the Southern Mingli Fire did not extinguish even after touching his bloodline. Instead, it extended along his wrist and burned brighter and brighter. Li Tian lost the initiative and was severely injured, retreating hurriedly. Like a shadow, Su Zimo strode forward and released the Great Chaos Essence Palm to suppress Li Tian without giving him any chance to catch his breath. Li Tian could not defend against it at all. Poof! Li Tian's body froze and his head was smashed by Su Zimo's palm. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. In less than 10 moves, the number 1 of the hunting ranking, Li Tian, was killed by Su Zimo's palm. Jian Yu and the others were slightly shocked. Even Li Tian did not gain any advantage in melee combat. If it was a one-on-one fight, they might not be Su Zimo's match either. This person sure is capable. Yun Ting rubbed his palms and praised, seemingly moved. Fang Xian, what do you think? On the other side, Old Man Gu asked. Fang Xian said, Li Tian was careless. Although the flames were powerful, they would have been of no threat if he had dodged them. As for this Su Zimo, he has a reckless personality and is too impulsive. There's nothing to fear. Although it's satisfying to kill, he has to flee everywhere in the Emperor's tomb now. Su Zimo, to think that I would have underestimated you. The skinny old man looked at Li Tian's corpse and said slowly, Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The moment the skinny old man said that, his aura changed and his glabella shone with a tremendous might. Earth Immortal! The crowd exclaimed. No, he's not an Earth Immortal. His cultivation realm is still at the Black Essence realm, but his essence spirit cultivation is already at the Earth Essence realm. The surrounding cultivators recognized it quickly. Yun Ting did not seem surprised at all. There's naturally a reason why the Great Gene Immortal Kingdom allowed the two of them to enter the Emperor's tomb as commanders. Su Zimo is still a little reckless. That lad won't be able to defend against the release of an Earth Immortal level Essence Spirit secret skill. Old Man Gu coughed. Su Zimo is already a dead man. The skinny old man released his consciousness and released the might of an Earth Immortal. Sweeping his gaze across Su Zimo and the others, he said slowly, Since His Highness Yuanzu allowed the two of us in, we naturally have trump cards that can control your lives. All of you watch and learn. What happens to Su Zimo will be the outcome of anyone who challenges the might of an immortal kingdom. With that said, the skinny old man channeled his spirit consciousness and was prepared to release an essence spirit secret skill to kill Su Zimo. However, he suddenly realized that Su Zimo had vanished. Earlier on, he was looking at Su Zimo. However, in the blink of an eye, the latter vanished from the spot. "You talk too much." Right then, an indifferent voice sounded in his ears. The next moment, the skinny old man felt a sharp pain in his mind and lost consciousness before long. Right from the beginning, he could not release his essence spirit secret skill. Behind him, Su Zimo was standing and had just retracted his finger. There was a hole behind the skinny old man's head that was filled with blood. A single finger pierced the skinny old man's skull and shattered his essence spirit. Even before his death, the skinny old man could not understand why Su Zimo would appear behind him. The other cultivators were shocked. Nobody expected Su Zimo to dare to attack an exalted immortal who served the prince of the great Jade Immortal Kingdom. More than that, no one expected Su Zimo to be so decisive and kill the skinny old man with a single strike without hesitation. Chapter 1979, Sword Art. Chapter 1979, Sword Art. The skinny old man was backed by Prince Xuan and the great Jade Immortal Kingdom. Nobody could challenge the might of an immortal kingdom. Many cultivators did not even dare to think about it, let alone kill so decisively. How dare you? A cultivator pointed at Su Zimo with a shocked expression. Poof! Right then, another strange sound came from the side. Everyone looked over and could not help but gasp. Not far away, a half-moon fingernail scar appeared on the fat old man's glabella and a scarlet blood scar gradually seeped out. The fat old man's gaze dimmed and his life force deteriorated rapidly. He could no longer survive. It was a symbol of the annihilation of one's essence spirit. Who did it? Many cultivators were shocked and retreated, leaving only the corpses of the fat and skinny old men on the spot. Everyone's attention was on Su Zimo earlier on, and they were certain that he did not attack after killing the skinny old man. Then, who killed this person? That was the scary part. Someone had died in front of everyone without anyone noticing who it was. Su Zimo's expression was calm. Others might not have noticed it, but he could. Among everyone present, Tang Zi was the only one who could kill the fat old man without anyone knowing. Tang Zi's timing was almost perfect and flawless. At that time, the skinny old man was killed by Su Zimo and caused an uproar. Almost everyone's attention was on Su Zimo. The fat old man had not expected that there would be another person who would dare attack him right beside him. Without any unnecessary movements, it was also a one-hit kill. Even till his death, the fat old man did not see who attacked. Actually, even if he did not die and successfully released his essence spirit secret skill, he would not be a threat to Su Zimo. Su Zimo's essence spirit had long broken through to the earth essence realm and surpassed the two of them. Furthermore, his essence spirit was protected by the creation lotus platform and could not be injured unless one's cultivation realm was much higher. Of course, Tang Zi's attack saved him some trouble. Although there were many cultivators present, there were few who truly saw what happened. Not far away, Yunting smiled. That man and woman sure are bold. They probably won't be able to live for long after killing the servants of Prince Xuan. Since Prince Xuan isn't here, he shouldn't know about this, right? A cultivator was puzzled. Yunting said, "There's no need for Prince Xuan to attack. These two old men represent the great Jade Immortal Kingdom, and that's the only thing the other sects and factions are wary of. Now that the two of them are dead, the other factions no longer have any reservations. In fact, they can even kill the two of them and snatch the 7 glow immortal ginseng with the excuse of purging traitors for the great Jade Immortal Kingdom." Right then, Fang suddenly declared from the other side, "The person who killed the exalted immortal of the Immortal Kingdom was the purple-robed woman among you." Su Zimo frowned slightly and looked at Fang Xian. Fang Xian was fearless and raised his head slightly with a provocative smile. He even extended his palm and slashed horizontally across his throat, making a beheading gesture. Tang Zi glanced at Fang Xian as well but retracted her gaze quickly. Even if she had killing intent or thoughts, she would not reveal them. "It was you." Jian Yu and the others retreated and distanced themselves from Tang Zi with wary expressions. Since her tracks were exposed, Tang Zi no longer hid. Without saying anything, She walked straight to the fat old man's corpse and removed his storage bag to search. At the same time, Xueqi took the skinny old man's storage bag and searched it. Before long, he found a teleportation talisman in the skinny old man's storage bag. He put away the talisman and looked at Tangzi at the same time. Tangzi happened to look over as well. The two of them exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. Both of them had almost the same thoughts. The reason why they searched the storage bags of the fat and skinny old men was not for any treasures, but for a way to leave the emperor's tomb. The fat and skinny old men had once said that they were the only ones with a way to leave the emperor's tomb. The greatest possibility was a teleportation talisman. Now that both of them had the teleportation talismans, it was equivalent to them taking the initiative. At the very least, they would not be trapped to death in the emperor's tomb. Hand it over. When Jian Yu and the others saw Xueqi and Tangzi's actions, they pondered for a moment and understood the reason. Everyone went forward and surrounded Xueqi and Tangzi. What are you guys doing? Xueqi surveyed his surroundings and asked indifferently. Jian Yu said coldly, leave the 7-glow immortal ginseng and teleportation talisman behind. Xueqi ignored Jian Yu's threat. If you want to leave the emperor's tomb, stay by my side. At that time, I'll naturally take you guys away. Humph. You guys killed an exalted immortal of the immortal kingdom and are bound to die. Yet, you want to lead us? Xueqi, the reason why you were able to kill the exalted immortal of the immortal kingdom earlier on was because you caught him off guard. All of us killed our way out of the 10 absolute hell. Do you think we're afraid of you? The remaining dozens of cultivators surrounded Xueqi and Tangzi with murderous auras. Off guard. Xueqi smiled and shook his head at the person who spoke. You're still too naive. If I want to kill you, you won't be able to stop me even if I tell you openly. How arrogant. The person was enraged and attacked first. He conjured a lesser divine power each with both hands and released them completely, shouting, Xueqi, die! That person's 2 lesser divine powers were offensive divine powers and he did not hold back at all. Xueqi's expression was calm as he moved and floated towards that person. At the same time, he flicked his finger. Chi! Chi! Sword chi tore through the air and 2 white sword chi arrived instantly, piercing the 2 lesser divine powers condensed in the person's palm. By the time that person was released, there were only 2 balls of heaven and earth essence chi left without any damage. Far away, Yun Ting's eyes lit up when he saw the 2 sword chi. His body trembled as he murmured softly, the aura of those 2 sword chi. Your Highness, what's wrong? Another cultivator whispered, although the killing intent of the 2 sword chi is strong, they can't compare to your Highness's sword chi. Ha 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 ha. Yun Ting could not help but rear his head in laughter with a delighted expression. The heavens are truly on my side. This trip was not wasted. In the eyes of others, Xueqi's 2 sword chi merely had a strong killing intent and were extremely powerful. However, Yun Ting knew that the 2 sword chi came from the same origin as the sword chi he cultivated. What he cultivated was one of the 3 famous sword arts of the upper world, the human-slaying sword art. The other 2 sword arts were heaven-slaying and earth-slaying. Among the 3 sword arts, the human-slaying sword art was the strongest. At its peak, it could condense supreme divine powers that could overturn the world. The 3 sword arts came from the sword world. It was said that if one comprehended all 3 sword arts and mastered them, they would have a chance to condense a supreme divine power of the sword Tao that was unprecedented and irreplaceable. Chapter 1980. Chaotic Battle. Chapter 1980. Chaotic Battle. 2 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth and destroyed the lesser divine powers conjured by the cultivator with ease. You're far from being able to take my life. Xueqi's tone was calm and his movement technique was extremely fast. Almost following the sword chi, he arrived instantly and slapped the cultivator on the head. Bang! The person shuddered and his gaze froze. Although he did not seem injured on the surface, his mind was already shattered by Xueqi's palm and his essence spirit was destroyed. It was as Xueqi had said before he attacked. Even if he wanted to kill them openly, they could not stop him. Jian Yu and the others fought their way out of the 10 absolute hell while Xueqi was completely nameless on the hunting ranking. Therefore, deep in their hearts, Everyone did not take Su Zimo seriously. After Su Zimo killed the three of them, the other cultivators did not retreat at all. Instead, their courage was triggered and they swarmed forward under Jian Yu's orders. The combined attack of dozens of Grade 9 Black Immortals was quite powerful. All sorts of lesser divine powers, immortal arts and secret skills were formed and essence chi surged. Poof! A thunderbolt flashed in the crowd. One of them had just leaped up when his body stiffened and a hole as thick as an arm appeared on his chest. It was charred and emitted green smoke. That person's chest was pierced by the power of thunder. Ah! The person let out a tragic cry and fell. Even if his essence spirit was not destroyed, his body was severely injured and his life force was devastated. He would not be able to last long with his remaining essence spirit. Behind him, Tang Zi's figure flashed past. A cultivator wanted to track down Tang Zi but realized that he could not. His spirit consciousness could not lock onto Tang Zi's location at all. Even Su Zimo's Earth Immortal Spirit consciousness could not lock onto Tang Zi. Back when the two of them fought in the cave, the main reason why Su Zimo was able to gain the upper hand and restrain Tang Zi was because of his spirit perception and the true Dragon 9 flashes. TSK. 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 Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he flicked his finger gently. 100 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth and splattered everywhere with killing intent. He was already at the level 9 Black Essence realm. With the Green Lotus true body, even at the same cultivation realm, his essence chi was many times purer than other cultivators. Therefore, the killing power of a single sword chi could dispel a divine power or secret skill. If Su Zimo were to release thousands of heaven-slaying sword chi, it would be apocalyptic and not many cultivators around the lake would survive. Far away, Yun Ting nodded slightly when he saw that. The heaven-slaying sword art is not wasted in his hand. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Indeed, it's extraordinary. A cultivator behind Yun Ting said with a smile. No matter how strong that person cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art, he can't compare to your highness's human-slaying sword art. That's for sure. Yun Ting had a proud expression. Notwithstanding the heaven-slaying sword art, even if this person possesses the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts, he won't be able to deal with the edge of my human-slaying sword art. There's no need to use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Leave it to us. Another person said in a deep voice, when he's exhausted, we'll head forward and definitely capture him alive to hand over to your highness. There's no need. Yun Ting said indifferently, I'll snatch the heaven-slaying sword art personally. Your highness, he's just a lowlife. Why are you? Before the person could finish, he was interrupted by Yun Ting. What status am I of? Yun Ting glared at the person. If I want the heaven-slaying sword art, I would naturally attack openly. I won't do things as despicable as taking advantage of the situation or bullying with numbers. The other cultivators lowered their heads and did not dare to speak. On the other side, in the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, Fang Xian's battle intent surged and he asked in a deep voice, seemingly unable to hold it in, Exalted Immortal, let me attack. I'll definitely be able to kill this person with a thunderous might and retrieve the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Hold on, there's no need to hurry. Old Man Gu said, this lad has some tricks up his sleeves. These dozens of cultivators are not his match. You'll only have a good chance of winning after he exhausts himself for a while. Fang Xian took a deep breath and continued watching. On the battlefield, Su Zimo released the heaven-slaying sword art and dispelled all sorts of divine powers and secret skills with a single flick. Relying on heavenly feet and boundless golden light, he shuttled through the crowd with ease. Every single punch and kick that seemed simple contained a terrifying burst power. Even without using his bloodline, the Green Lotus true body alone could take on connate black-grade dermic treasures head-on. Cultivators could not use dermic treasures and weapons in the Emperor's tomb. However, Su Zimo was a human-shaped connate black-grade dermic treasure. Who could defend against him? Bang! 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 As though he was taking a leisure stroll, Su Zimo charged left and right and no one could stop him. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the dozens of Grade 9 Black Immortals were killed by him. A small half of them died in the chaos and did not even know who killed them. Although this was the first time that Su Zimo and Tang Zi had truly joined forces, they had great chemistry. Su Zimo fought against dozens of cultivators head-on. On the other hand, Tang Zi relied on her unpredictable movement and concealment techniques to blend into the crowd. She appeared occasionally and rarely attacked. However, every single attack would result in the death of a cultivator. The two of them were not on the hunting ranking. But now, almost all the cultivators on the hunting ranking were killed. The remaining few people finally felt fear and retreated. However, at that moment, the cultivators of the many sects and factions that were initially watching surged over like a tide. Most of them were from small sects and factions. Previously, the fat and skinny old men were from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom and could be considered as exalted immortals. No matter how bold they would not dare to attack and were wary. But now that the fat and skinny old men were dead, Su Zimo and the others were merely black immortals of the lower worlds. Furthermore, they were the murderers of the fat and skinny old men. With that, many cultivators now had an excuse to swarm forward so that they could seize the 7 glow immortal ginseng in the chaos. Far away, Old Man Go laughed oddly. With so many people charging forward, it'll be difficult for Su Zimo to escape unscathed even if he has 3 heads and 6 arms. Fang Xian, prepare yourself. Wait for my orders to attack at any moment. Understood. Fang Xian replied in a deep voice. On the other side, the cultivators of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom frowned. Your Highness, Su Zimo is most likely doomed. Yun Ting clasped his hands behind his back in silence. On the battlefield, Su Zimo was fearless against the cultivators charging over from all directions. In fact, there was not even a single ripple in his eyes. Hey, let's retreat first. We can't take them head-on. Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. You leave first. Be careful. Su Zimo replied. If the cultivators outside were all top-tier black immortals without any restrictions and were at their peak combat strength, he might be wary of some dermic treasures or trump cards. However, in the Emperor's tomb, Su Zimo was confident that he could sweep through everything with his body, immortal arts and divine powers. Furthermore, the environment of the Emperor's tomb was complicated and every single step was filled with killing intent. If they encountered some unknown living beings in the Emperor's tomb while retreating, they might encounter danger instead. Chapter 1981. Silence in the World. Chapter 1981. Silence in the World. Hand over the immortal ginseng. An utmost treasure like that is not something you can keep for yourself. Some cultivators shouted without concealing their motives. Many cultivators swarmed over with an aggressive aura. Even if they could not use any dermic treasures or weapons, the descent of many divine powers and secret skills at the same time was earth-shaking and terrifying. Ah! A sharp howl suddenly sounded in the crowd. It was extremely ear-piercing and seemed like it could tear through the eardrums of many cultivators. It was the immortal whale sound. Tang Zi did not leave. The cultivators around Tang Zi felt their bodies tremble and their ears hurt as arrows of blood spewed out. Even cultivators who were slightly further away were shocked. The divine powers and secret skills they had just conjured became unstable and swayed slightly. Legend has it that the bloodline of the taboo Kuan Peng flowed through the immortal whale's body and it was massive. Once it released its whale sound, it would produce an extremely terrifying lethality. Tang Zi stood in midair and howled into the skies. It was as though a gigantic immortal whale had appeared above her head and was swimming in the tides, slapping the surface of the water and creating massive waves with a series of whale sounds. The immortal whale sound seemed to have materialized and spread in all directions with Tang Zi as the center. Roar! Right then, another strange roar sounded not far away with a mighty might, as though a myriad of elephants were trumpeting at the same time. Yun Ting glanced sideways. Far away, a black-robed man from the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom leaped up. His black hair danced as he roared in Tang Zi's direction. It was Fang Xian. Beneath Fang Xian's feet, a myriad of gigantic elephants appeared vaguely. Swinging their trunks, they stabbed their gigantic tusks into the air and roared into the skies. The immortal whale was the overlord of the sea. However, the divine elephant was a god of the land. The immortal whale sound and the myriad elephant roar, 2 sound domain secret skills, collided fiercely in midair. Neither side was willing to back down. It was hard to tell who was stronger between the two sound domain secret skills. However, because of Fang Xian's attack, the cultivators who were initially surrounding Su Zimo were invigorated and freed from the pain of the immortal whale sound. Interesting. Initially, Yun Ting was watching from afar and had no intention of attacking. However, at that moment, the collision of the two sound domain secret skills caused his bloodline to stir and could not calm down. To think that I would encounter some decent opponents in the Black Essence realm. Yun Ting burst into laughter and conjured his sword finger, slashing down in the direction of the battlefield. He shouted 3 times in succession, "Break! Break! Break!" Yun Ting's voice was much weaker compared to the sound of the immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar. However, his 3 shouts condensed 3 swords in midair that were sharp and murderous. Sword condensation using sound. His talent in the Tao of the sword was truly shocking and unimaginable. Even Fang Xian had a grim expression and retracted the contempt in his eyes. Initially, he did not take Yun Ting seriously. However, it was only now that he realized that this was an extremely powerful opponent. The 3 sound swords tore through the air and descended from the skies without fear of the clash between the immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar. Shing! It was as though a cloth had been torn by a sharp weapon. The immortal whale sound and myriad elephant roar were split cleanly into 2 by Yun Ting's 3 sound swords. A ferocious glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes. Initially, he had no intention of using the Dragon Roar secret skill. That was one of his trump cards. He would not use it unless he had no other choice. However, at that moment, the 3 sound domain secret skills descended at the same time and collided in his ears, causing the Green Lotus bloodline in his body to boil fervently. If he continued, his Green Lotus bloodline would be exposed. Furthermore, in the depths of Su Zimo's heart, there was a hint of pride as well. He wanted to fight against all the paragons in the world. "All of you, get lost," Su Zimo said slowly. At the last word, he released the dermic formulation of the Dragon Roar secret skill. Instantly the world shook. A divine dragon shimmering with green scales appeared beside Su Zimo. Its horns were towering and its might was terrifying as it coiled upwards and roared into the skies. The divine dragon was lifelike. When it roared, its whiskers danced and the scales on its body exploded slightly, causing its entire body to expand. The dragon roar was way too terrifying, as though it contained a supreme will. The immortal whale in midair suddenly leaped into the sea and vanished. Under Su Zimo's control, the Dragon Roar secret skill had the least impact on Tang Zi. As for the myriad of gigantic elephants beneath Fang Xian's feet, they shattered and dissipated into the world under the shock of the Dragon Roar. Fang Xian's body swayed slightly but stabilized quickly. The 3 sound swords lasted for a little longer but shattered into nothingness as well. The Dragon Roar secret skill was fused with many secret skills, including Thunderclap Kill, the sound of the Dragon Phoenix and the roar of the Azure Dragon. Each of those sound domain secret skills individually was enough to sweep through any one of the same cultivation realm. One could naturally imagine how terrifying the combined power of those secret skills was. When the Dragon Roar secret skill was released, the entire world went silent. Dragon Roar technique. Yun Ting did not move at all. He narrowed his eyes and murmured. But soon, Yun Ting shook his head again. Something's not right. This sound domain secret skill seems to be fused with other dermic formulations. There's also the power of thunder. Be it Fang Xian or Yun Ting, they were far away to begin with. Coupled with their powerful blood chi and physique, Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill had almost no effect on them. However, on the battlefield, many cultivators who attacked Su Zimo suffered. First, they endured the baptism of the immortal whale sound. Immediately after, they endured the impact of the myriad elephant roar. Thereafter, it was Yun Ting's 3 sound swords. Most of the cultivators on the battlefield could no longer hold out against the descent of the 3 sound domain secret skills. The Dragon Roar secret skill was even more terrifying. The moment it was released, the cultivators closest to Su Zimo exploded and died on the spot. The bodies and bloodlines of those cultivators were severely injured by the 3 sound domain secret skills. If they retreated in time, they might be able to recover. However, the Dragon Roar secret skill destroyed them like a violent storm. Some cultivators further away fell from midair as well. Some of them fell limply to the ground with bloodied faces in a menacing manner, almost destroyed by the power of the Dragon Roar secret skill. Before the divine powers and secret skills in midair descended, they were destroyed by the 4 sound domain secret skills. Those who could enter the Emperor's tomb were carefully selected top experts of the Black Essence realm. However, when they truly fought, many cultivators realized that even though they were all grade 9 Black Immortals, the difference between them was like heaven and earth. Fang Xian's eyes were filled with fighting spirit as he strode towards Su Zimo. 4 cultivators, 3 men and a woman, surrounded Su Zimo from 4 directions as well. There were not many cultivators with combat strength after the 4 sound domain secret skills. It was clear how strong the 3 men and 1 woman were. Be careful, those are people from the 4 immortal sects. Tang Zi's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Chapter 1982. Informant, Die. Chapter 1982. Informant, Die. Su Zimo did not know much about the 4 immortal sects and merely heard about them for the first time in the Battle of the Dragon Abyss Star. In the heavenly world, sects were divided into 3 grades: Black, Earth and Heaven. Under normal circumstances, those who ascended from the lower worlds did not even have the chance to enter Black grade sections. As for the 4 immortal sects, they were heaven grade sects of divine firmament mainland, and one could imagine their strength. Among the 3 men, one of them was bald with a fat head and ears like a monk. Another had dark skin, a tall figure and short hair, resembling a walking iron tower. The third was a middle-aged man with a Dao crown on his head. His sleeves fluttered and he was dark and calm. The woman wore a blue dress and her lips were scarlet with a hint of purple. She looked a little terrifying. The fact that the 4 of them could withstand the impact of the 4 sound domain secret skills was proof of their strength. Although Su Zimo was confident that he could overwhelm opponents of the same level, he did not dare to be careless. With a long howl, his aura intensified. On the other side, a flustered figure was staggering towards Yun Ting. It was Jian Yu who had escaped death. The sound domain secret skills of Tang Zi, Fang Xian and Yun Ting were already the limit of what he could endure. When Su Zimo released his Dragon Roar secret skill, the bloodline within his body reversed. His organs vibrated and he almost died on the spot. Your Highness, save me. Although Jian Yu did not know Yun Ting, he recognized the badge on Yun Ting's body. That was an item that only the descendants of the royal family of the Zixian Immortal Kingdom were qualified to wear. Jian Yu shouted for help before he even reached Yun Ting. Yun Ting glanced at Jian Yu indifferently. He ignored you guys completely. If you guys had not provoked him, you would not have gotten yourselves killed. Your Highness, please show mercy. He is ruthless without any reservations and even dared to kill the exalted immortals who served Prince Yuan Zhua. What else can he not do? With an indignant expression, Jian Yu said hatefully, when I return to the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom, I'll definitely report this matter to Prince Yuan Zhua. Yun Ting sneered and attacked without warning. Even if Jian Yu was in his peak condition, he would not be able to defend against Yun Ting's attack, let alone the fact that he was severely injured. Your Highness, you. Jian Yu was lifted by the back of his neck by Yun Ting and hovered in midair like a chicken that was caught. He had a panicked expression and could not struggle at all. Yun Ting said indifferently, I hate informers the most in my life. You're not worthy of using a sword. The moment he said that, Yun Ting closed 2 fingers and slashed down. A bloodied head was severed by Yun Ting's fingers. His sword finger was even sharper than a true sword. On the other side, the people of the 4 immortal sects had already begun fighting Su Zimo. The bald monk was the first to arrive and roared in laughter. Patron, I'm here to purify you into the afterlife. He raised his arms and they shone as though they were covered by a thick layer of gold foil, smashing towards Su Zimo. His arms were like 2 thick and tough rods with immense strength and incomparable ferocity. Immediately after, the Iron Tower Man approached as well. His body was upright and he was half a body taller than Su Zimo. Ha! The Iron Tower Man's shout sounded like thunder in one's ears. He extended his arm and clenched it into a fist, punching down at Su Zimo's head. The Iron Tower Man clenched his fists like a black hammer that was defined and filled with a metallic luster. Be it the bald monk or the Iron Tower man, they were both body-tempered experts and their physiques were shockingly strong. On the other side, the middle-aged Taoist waved his wide sleeves and shouted softly, "Freeze!" The Lesser Divine Power, Body Immobilization Technique. The body immobilization technique was one of the most common lesser divine powers. At its limits, it could transform into a supreme divine power, Spatial Stop. Although the body immobilization technique was common, everyone's essence spirit was different in terms of purity, cultivation realm and strength. The effects produced were completely different. Su Zimo's essence spirit had long reached the earth essence realm and was a major cultivation realm above his peers. Therefore, the body immobilization technique had no effect on him when used by others. That was the case even if the middle-aged Taoist was from one of the four immortal sections. However, the middle-aged Taoist still had a trump card. The moment he released the body immobilization technique, his two wide sleeves arrived instantly and wrapped around Su Zimo a few times. The body immobilization technique was only the first move and the killing move was later on. Although the blue-dressed woman was the slowest to attack, the fingernails on her fingers were purple and gave off a foul stench. Poison! The blue-dressed woman extended her sharp fingernails and grabbed towards Su Zimo like 10 poisonous swords. The experts of the four immortal sects released terrifying attacks at almost the same time. Although the four of them did not know each other and this was their first time joining forces, their coordination was perfect. This was the sort of chemistry between top-tier experts. When he saw that, Yunting nodded slightly and said softly, "Although the four of them are only servants of the four immortal sects, their methods are indeed not weak. I'm probably the only one who can defend against an attack as such." On the battlefield, Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat when she saw that. Given her eyesight, she could naturally tell how terrifying the combined forces of the experts of the four immortal sects were. At the very least, if she was in Su Zimo's position, it would be difficult for her to escape unscathed. In a flash, Tang Zi retracted her figure and sneaked towards the middle-aged Taoist. As long as she could kill one of them, it would be much easier to deal with the remaining three. "Hee, where are you going?" Right then, a sneer sounded from the side. Immediately after, Tang Zi felt a strong gust of wind that even hurt her ears. What was even more frightening was that this person's attack sealed all of Tang Zi's escape routes. Expert! Tang Zi did not dare to be careless and hurriedly stopped to avoid the other party's killing move and focused her gaze. A black-robed man blocked her path. It was Fang of the Yen-Yong Immortal Kingdom. Tang Zi frowned slightly. If the two of them were to fight head-on, it would be difficult to determine the victor within a short period of time. That single delay caused Su Zimo on the other side of the battlefield to fall into the torrential attacks of the four experts. With a burning gaze, Su Zimo took a deep breath and his chest puffed up. It was as though he had transformed into an anaconda that wanted to devour the sun and moon. This was a secret skill from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. Xing! Instantly, Su Zimo's sleeves were ripped apart, turning into countless pieces of cloth that fell to the ground. The middle-aged Taoist was stunned. His move had killed countless paragons. To think that it would be dispelled so easily today. Get lost! A tremendous amount of essence chi accumulated in Su Zimo's chest suddenly burst forth as he exhaled. Su Zimo released the great chaos essence palm with his left hand and crushed towards the bald monk's arms like a gigantic millstone. At the same time, he swiped his right hand across his chest and clenched it into a fist. His flesh expanded and he conjured a gigantic seal that smashed towards the Iron Tower man's iron fist. Boom! With a loud bang, the bald monk's expression changed starkly as he retreated. The gold foil on his arms was already shattered by the great chaos essence palm. Bang! Fists collided, flesh met and bones ground. Before long, a flush appeared on the Iron Tower man's face. Ah! The Iron Tower man growled deeply with a pained expression and staggered 3 steps back. Chapter 1983. Clues of the Jade Talisman. Chapter 1983. Clues of the Jade Talisman. Every single step the Iron Tower man took left a deep footprint on the ground. In the blink of an eye, 3 of the experts of the 4 immortal sects retreated. At the same time, the blue-dressed woman's killing move descended. Su Zimo did not turn back at all. As though he had eyes behind him, he closed 2 fingers and conjured a sword art, waving it behind him. Chi! After condensing the heaven-slaying sword art, at least 100 sword chi spewed out at the same time and formed a sword. Sensing the terror of the sword, the blue-dressed woman's expression changed starkly as she stopped in her tracks and retreated. She wanted to stop, but she was still a step too late. Clang! 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 The sound of metal clashing echoed as the blue-dressed woman's 10 fingernails were snapped by the heaven-slaying sword chi. Pieces of fingernails scattered on the ground with a purplish-green poisonous glow. Against the encirclement of the experts of the 4 immortal sects, Su Zimo counterattacked domineeringly and forced all 4 of them back. On the other side, Tang Zi, who was already fighting Fang Xian, was temporarily relieved. Ha 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 ha! Su Zimo burst into laughter and looked down at the 4 of them. Not bad. You guys are quite capable to be able to escape from my hands unscathed. How arrogant! The middle-aged Taoist's expression darkened as he hollered. However, the other 3 remained silent with ugly expressions. Su Zimo's words were indeed extremely piercing and arrogant. However, the 3 of them knew that Su Zimo was not lying at all. The moment the bald monk collided with the great chaos essence palm, he sensed that something was amiss and retreated in time so he was not injured. If he had retreated slightly slower, both his arms might have been ground into a pulp by the great chaos essence palm. The reason why the Iron Tower Man was able to withstand Su Zimo's punch was because he had made use of a secret skill to redirect his opponent's attack into the ground through his body. That was the reason why his 3 steps left such deep footprints on the ground. It was even more dangerous for the blue-dressed woman. She specialized in the Tao of poison, and the power of her body and bloodline was far inferior to the bald monk and the Iron Tower Man, let alone Su Zimo. If she had dodged slower earlier on, both her arms would have been severed by the heaven-slaying sword chi. The 4 of them came from the 4 immortal sects and had the lowest status in the sect. However, cultivators who could enter the immortal sects should be far superior to their peers, even if they were the most inferior servants. To think that the 4 of them would encounter such a ruthless person in the Emperor's tomb. On the other side, Yun Ting, who was watching the battle, had a conflicted expression. Earlier on, he merely said that he could resolve the encirclement of the 4 of them. To think that not only did Su Zimo resolve it, he even counterattacked forcefully and nearly injured the experts of the 4 immortal sects. On the other side, Tang Zi and Fang Xian fought continuously, and it was difficult to determine the victor. Although Tang Zi cultivated the Tao of assassination, her physique and bloodline were extraordinary and her foundation was extremely firm. Even if she were to fight against paragons and monster incarnates head-on, she would not be disadvantaged at all. The more Fang Xian fought, the more alarmed he became. He ascended after the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, and was invincible in the lower worlds. Even in the upper world, he had not encountered any opponents. Initially, in his eyes, Yun Ting, Su Zimo and the experts of the 4 immortal sects might be the only ones who could threaten him. He did not take Tang Zi seriously at all. To think that this seemingly ordinary woman would be so troublesome and terrifying. Her attacks were unpredictable and they were all killing moves. There were even a few times when he was almost severely injured. Where did this person come from? Fang Xian cursed internally. Right then, a jade green light burst forth from the distant horizon and soared into the skies. However, it disappeared quickly. Many cultivators were shocked and fell into deep thought. Su Zimo saw the green light as well. Could it be the Jade Talisman? None of them had any clues about the Jade Talisman. The sudden appearance of the green light caused everyone to make guesses. After a brief silence, cultivators moved and sped in the direction of the Jade Talisman. Your Highness, what about us? A cultivator of the Zixuan Immortal Kingdom asked softly. Let's take a look over there first. I'm bent on getting my hands on both the Jade Talisman and heaven-slaying sword art. Yun Ting pondered for a moment with a deep gaze. Let's find the Jade Talisman first. We won't lose track of Su Zimo. Pausing for a moment, he smiled. In my judgment, apart from me, no one in the Emperor's tomb can stop him. Your Highness, you seem to think highly of him? Someone behind Yun Ting could tell what he was implying. Yun Ting nodded slightly. This person is very talented and cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art. We can be considered to be fated. However, he ascended from the lower worlds and it's difficult for him to stand out in the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. The only chance for him to make his mark in the 9 firmament is if he follows me. The cultivator smiled. Your Highness, in the upper world, there's almost no one else who treats cultivators of the lower worlds equally like you. It's his fortune if he can be recruited by you. Yunting shook his head and smiled. Not necessarily. Anyone with such talent and combat strength is a monster incarnate. They're prideful and difficult to recruit. I have to defeat him and convince him before I can take him under my wing. With that said, Yunting glanced at Su Zimo again and led the many cultivators of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom in the direction of the green light. Fang Xian, let's ignore that woman and look for the Jade Talisman first. We can't let anyone seize the initiative. The voice of Old Man Gu sounded in Fang Xian's mind. Bang! On the battlefield, Fang Xian clashed head-on with Tang Zi and retreated. Waving the lightning on his fist, he sneered. I'm not playing with you anymore. We'll fight again next time. You'll die the next time. Tang Zi said indifferently. Ha ha! Fang Xian burst into laughter. You want to kill me? You're far from that. The moment he said that, Fang Xian turned and sped back to Old Man Ji's side and left with everyone from the Yan-Yang Immortal Kingdom. The experts of the 4 immortal sects who were initially confronting Su Zimo wanted to retreat as well. The mission given to them by the sect was to search for the Jade Talisman, not the 7 glow immortal ginseng. If they continued to fight with Su Zimo here and lost sight of the big picture because of this, they would be punished when they returned even if they could get their hands on the 7 glow immortal ginseng. At that thought, the experts of the 4 immortal sects exchanged glances and retreated at the same time, leaving with the other cultivators of the sect. Tang Zi came to Su Zimo's side. There were more than 100 people from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom who entered the Emperor's tomb and they were the only ones left. Seems like everyone has the same goal, the Jade Talisman. Su Zimo murmured softly. Tang Zi nodded in silent agreement. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. I wonder what's the origin and secret of this Jade Talisman to alarm so many sects and faction. In the eyes of these sects and factions, it's even more important than the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Tang Zi said, I guess only someone of Yunting's status can know such a secret. Let's go take a look too. Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Even without the arrangements of Prince Yuanzhua, he wanted to see what the Jade Talisman looked like and what secrets it hid. Tang Zi did not say anything and merely followed behind Su Zimo silently. Chapter 1984. Ruined Palace. Chapter 1984. Ruined Palace. Su Zimo and Tang Zi sped along the tracks of many cultivators. After walking for about half a day, they caught sight of a massive building at the horizon ahead. It looked like a palace. Although it was dilapidated, one could still sense its grandeur from afar. There were even some cultivators lingering around the palace, as though they were searching for something. Most of the cultivators had already entered the hall. Su Zimo and Tang Zi arrived before the palace and took a rough look but could not make out anything. The two of them did not waste time outside and entered the palace. In front of them was a spacious square paved with green stones. There were a few stone paths that separated the medicinal fields. However, there were no longer any immortal herbs in the medicinal fields, only some withered leaves. Even the soil in the medicinal fields was corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb and shone with a strange green color. The square was huge and even with Su Zimo's eyesight, he could not see the borders. The two of them passed through the medicinal fields along the stone paths and continued forward. Along the way, they encountered some cultivators walking around the square. This palace was probably one of the temporary residences of the immortal emperor back then. I wonder if there are any treasures? There are definitely treasures. Unfortunately, they were corroded by the curse here for countless years and are now crippled. I heard that the side halls on the left and right contain some rare treasures, elixirs, divine weapons and dermic treasures. Unfortunately, none of them can be used. If that wasn't the case, even every single blade of grass in this palace would be an incredible treasure. Since we can't enter the main hall for the time being, let's continue searching. If we're lucky and find any treasures, we'll make a killing. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he caught faint whispers around the square. The cultivators outside the palace were probably trying their luck searching for treasures as well. However, he did not know why those people said that they could not enter the main hall for the time being. The two of them continued forward and before long, they crossed the entire square. At the end of the square stood the main hall of the palace. Thousands of cultivators were gathered in front of the hall, staring at the door of the main hall. Some of them were even discussing softly. The two of them went forward to take a look and saw that the ground at the entrance of the hall was etched with dense and complicated patterns that shone faintly. "It's a formation," Tang Zi whispered. Su Zimo nodded and stared at the formation in front of the main hall for a while, feeling dizzy. The formation was way too complicated and he could not dispel it given his attainments in formations. However, at that moment, a young man stood at the edge of the formation in front of the main hall. The person had a confident expression and was in high spirits. From time to time, he would stop and ponder or speed up and flick his finger, sending essence chi spirit lights into the formation. This was the young prince of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom, Yun Ting. Each time Yun Ting made a move, the formation would tremble slightly and shine. Furthermore, the light of the formation was clearly dimming. Yun Ting was dispelling the formation. At this rate, it was only a matter of time before the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo could sense that Yun Ting was very strong. In fact, he could even sense a hint of danger from that person. To be able to cultivate to the level 9 Black Essence realm at more than 200 years old, even if this person had a noble status and unlimited resources, his talent was truly terrifying. What was even more frightening was that this person's attainments in array formations were so deep as well. There was a limit to one's strength. Even if one cultivated wholeheartedly for more than 200 years, he might not be able to reach the level 9 Black Essence realm. However, this person could even divert attention to cultivate array formations. Why do we have to enter through the main entrance of the main hall? Are there no other entrances? The main hall is dilapidated and on the verge of collapse. I'm afraid it won't even be able to withstand a single punch from me. A cultivator in the crowd muttered. Foo-foo. Immediately, a scoff sounded from the side. You can try going up. The main hall is surrounded by restrictions and you'll definitely die if you barge in. Do you see those corpses? That is what will happen. The first person was stunned and did not dare to say anything more. Dispelling formations takes a huge toll on one's essence spirit. This prince sure is bold. He's not afraid of running out of energy and encountering danger. What status is he of? Almost everyone in the Emperor's tomb is of a lowly status. Who would dare to lay a hand on him? Furthermore, even if his essence spirit takes a huge toll, he's probably still invincible among his peers. In the crowd, Fang Xian watched everything coldly and smirked. That person is young after all and is way too conceited. He doesn't know how to hold back. Su Zimo watched for a while before exiting the crowd. Where are you going? Tang Zi asked. Su Zimo said, It'll be difficult to dispel this formation within a short period of time. I intend to explore the side halls on both sides. I'm not going. Tang Zi did not move. She still wanted to rush into the main hall right away and seize the initiative when the formation was dispelled. Su Zimo nodded and turned towards a side hall. There were no restrictions in the side hall. The door was open and it was a mess inside. It was clear that many cultivators had overturned it. Initially, there were many divine weapons and dermic treasures placed in the side hall. There were sabers, spears, swords, halberds, bells, cauldrons, mirrors, ordinary weapons and dermic treasures of different races. Everything was present. However, at that moment, most of the divine weapons and dermic treasures were already strewn everywhere. To be precise, those were no longer divine weapons or dermic treasures. Under the corrosion of the curse of the Emperor's tomb, the original divine weapons and dermic treasures had long turned into scrap metal. In fact, the grades of those divine weapons and dermic treasures were not too high. At the very least, they were not at the level of sentient dermic treasures. That was because there was no feedback from the health suppression tripod that was still refining the molten metal within. There were still some cultivators lingering in the side hall, wanting to search for some treasures that were missed. In fact, a few cultivators even fought because of a broken sword. After searching carefully and finding nothing, Su Zimo walked towards the side hall opposite. The side hall earlier on contained divine weapons and dermic treasures, while this side hall originally contained many elixirs. The medicine cabinet in the side hall was already strewn on the ground with bottles and jars scattered on it. Many bottles were uncorked and the elixirs inside rolled out. Su Zimo picked up a random elixir and twisted it gently with his finger, turning it into ashes. After countless years, the medicinal effects and spirit chi within had long dissipated. Even if there were intact elixirs, they would be tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Consuming them would be no different from committing suicide. Su Zimo circled the side hall and was prepared to leave after discovering nothing. Just as he passed by a dilapidated ruin, the hell suppression tripod stirred. Chapter 1985, Bronze Lanterns. Chapter 1985, Bronze Lantern. Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and frowned slightly. This side hall was filled with elixirs. Why would the hell suppression tripod have such a reaction? The hell suppression tripod had always only devoured and refined spirit treasures and had never been interested in any elixirs. Furthermore, the elixirs here were tainted by the curse and had long lost their medicinal effects without any value. However, the commotion in his consciousness was extremely obvious and could not be an illusion. To be precise, the commotion was even greater than the hell suppression tripod encountering a spirit treasure. Su Zimo searched carefully under the ruins. Beneath his feet was a dusty ruin with a pile of useless items buried. All sorts of elixirs were mixed in the mud and it was almost impossible to tell them apart. Su Zimo bent down and searched carefully. Although the area was not big, there was a lot of debris. There was a shattered stone table, dilapidated counter, abandoned bronze lamp and many broken porcelain jars. After checking for a long time, Su Zimo did not find anything worthy of the hell suppression tripod's attention. He pondered for a moment and his gaze shifted to the ancient bronze lantern from before. The bronze lantern had a simple design and was extremely common. There was nothing exquisite about it and it was mostly buried in the mud. It should be an ordinary illumination object that was originally embedded in the walls of this side hall. Furthermore, the exposed part of the bronze lantern was covered in a layer of green spots. It was clearly corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Therefore, when Su Zimo first saw the bronze lantern, he did not take it to heart and swept his gaze across it. At that moment, he arrived before the bronze lantern and bent down, wanting to pull it out of the mud. The moment his finger made contact with the bronze lantern, he shuddered and his consciousness blurred. Suddenly, a powerful and strange suction force burst forth from the bronze lantern. Su Zimo felt that the essence spirit in his consciousness was about to leave his body and enter the bronze lantern. Sensing danger, the creation lotus platform shone brightly and green rays of light burst forth from the 81 lotus holes, turning into thin threads that wrapped around Su Zimo's essence spirit and pinned it on the lotus platform. Even so, the suction force was extremely strong. Pang, pang, pang. After a momentary stalemate, the green threads on Su Zimo's essence spirit snapped. Even the creation lotus platform could not defend against that power. Hum. Suddenly, a loud Sanskrit sound echoed in Su Zimo's consciousness and the phantoms of Buddhas appeared, chanting Buddhist sutras loudly. The contents were from the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. Sanskrit words appeared one after another around Su Zimo's essence spirit. They shone with a golden light and were dignified, mysterious and formed a barrier of Sanskrit. It was strange. After the phantoms of the Buddhas appeared and the Buddhist sutras sounded, the strange suction force gradually weakened and the attack was not as strong as before. However, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra was incomplete. After chanting for a while, the voices of the Buddhas stopped and the golden Sanskrit words around them faded rapidly. The suction force from the bronze lantern increased once more. Su Zimo's consciousness had already recovered a momentary clarity. He retracted his palm hurriedly and took half a step back with a shocked expression. What was that ancient bronze lantern that almost devoured his essence spirit? Even the creation lotus platform could not protect him. If not for the fact that he had cultivated half of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and attracted the phantoms of Buddhas to appear and chant sutras, he might have died for no reason. This thing could not even be touched. It was truly strange. Waving his sleeves, Su Zimo wiped away the mud around the bronze lantern and gradually revealed its true appearance. Su Zimo focused his gaze and frowned slightly as he looked at the lower half of the bronze lantern that was buried in the mud. The exposed part of the bronze lantern was filled with green spots. However, the buried part was a dark yellow color without any green spots. Everything in the Emperor's tomb was corroded by the curse, and the soil beneath his feet was not spared either. Logically speaking, even if the ancient bronze lantern was buried in the soil, it should have been corroded by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. However, the situation of the bronze lantern was rather strange. Su Zimo stared at the green spots on the bronze lantern for a while, and gradually noticed something unusual. If he was not wrong, the green spots on the bronze should not be caused by the curse of the Emperor's tomb, but by rust. In other words, the bronze lantern had not been corroded by the curse after countless years in the Emperor's tomb. In the Emperor's tomb, even sentient dermic treasures could not defend against the corrosion of the curse. Up till now, only Su Zimo's hell suppression tripod would not be tainted by the curse. In other words, this bronze lantern was definitely better than a sentient dermic treasure. There was a high chance that it was a 9 Tribulations Pure Yang Spirit Treasure or Grotto Heaven Spirit Treasure. At that thought, Su Zimo was secretly delighted. If that was truly the case, the fourth wall of the hell suppression tripod could be repaired after devouring and refining the bronze lantern. Su Zimo looked around, and when he saw that there was no one else in the side hall, he took out the hell suppression tripod. The hell suppression tripod was in his consciousness, and he did not dare to throw the bronze lantern into his consciousness. In fact, he did not even dare to use his spirit consciousness to move the ancient bronze lantern, afraid that the dangerous situation from before would repeat itself. Carefully, Su Zimo channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra and covered his sleeves with a faint layer of golden Buddhist light. Thereafter, he waved his sleeves and swept up the bronze lantern on the ground, tossing it into the hell suppression tripod. With a thud, the ancient bronze lantern fell into the steaming molten iron within the tripod and vanished. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief and was about to put away the hell suppression tripod when he heard a splash. The molten metal in the tripod surged and the ancient bronze lantern floated once more. Immediately after, the hell suppression tripod swayed continuously and molten iron rippled, tossing the bronze lantern out of the tripod and onto the ground. Su Zimo was stunned and dumbfounded. The hell suppression tripod had spat out the bronze lantern. The bronze lantern spun in the hell suppression tripod and underwent a baptism. However, it was still intact and seemed to have turned even more mysterious. The green spots on the bronze lantern had already been washed away by the molten metal in the tripod and returned to its original bronze color. Even the hell suppression tripod can't devour this thing. Su Zimo stared at the bronze lantern with a pensive gaze. This bronze lantern might be even more precious than he had imagined. After washing away the bronze-green color, he saw a word vaguely etched on the lantern at the top. Su Zimo walked closer and took a closer look before murmuring softly, "Soul." There was a soul character in the lantern. Furthermore, it was written in Sanskrit, so Su Zimo could not recognize it right away. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out a new storage bag and channeled the Prajna Nirvana Sutra as per his previous method. He swept the bronze lantern into his storage bag with his sleeves and kept it alone. He did not know the origin and use of that thing yet. However, something that even the hell suppression tripod could not devour was definitely extraordinary. Right then, a commotion broke out from the direction of the main hall. The formation had been dispelled. Chapter 1986. Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. Chapter 1986. Immortal Emperor's Remnant Consciousness. In a flash, Su Zimo sped towards the main hall. At the same time, cultivators from all over the palace noticed the commotion and surged towards the main hall. The crowd in front of the main hall was getting denser and there were already more than 10,000 people. All of them were excited and rubbed their palms together. When Su Zimo arrived, he saw Yun Ting standing at the front of the crowd with a deep gaze, waving his hands continuously. His clothes fluttered in an extraordinary manner. In a short period of time, Yun Ting's fingertip emitted at least hundreds of spirit lights that entered the formation in front of the main hall instantly. The light of the formation suddenly burst forth in a bedazzling manner, engulfing Yun Ting instantly and causing a series of exclamations. Many cultivators thought that Yun Ting had failed and was devoured by the formation. But soon, Everyone realized that Yun Ting's figure was motionless against the illumination of the formation, and his aura became even sharper. "Open up!" Yun Ting hollered and pointed forward. Like a tide, the light of the formation was split into two from the middle and dissipated immediately. After a brief burst, all the light vanished. The formation at the entrance of the main hall was completely dispelled. As for Yun Ting, his face was only slightly pale and his aura did not weaken at all. He took out an elixir with a rich medicinal fragrance from his storage bag and swallowed it. Before long, his face turned rosy. With a boom, the door to the main hall collapsed heavily, causing dust to fly everywhere. When they saw that, many cultivators were invigorated and their gazes burned. After a momentary daze, they wanted to barge into the main hall to check things out. Finally, someone is here. Suddenly, a sigh sounded from the entire palace, as though it came from the distant past and was filled with the vicissitudes of time. Against that sigh, everyone in the palace seemed to be frozen on the spot. It was the same for Yun Ting, who was in midair, and Su Zimo, who was in the crowd. That power had completely exceeded everyone's imagination. Who was this person? How long had he been here for him to say something like that? This person was not dead after lingering in the Emperor's tomb. This palace was one of my palaces back then. The Jade Talisman is in the main hall. After a moment of silence, the voice sounded once more. Could the owner of that voice be the Immortal Emperor of the past? The Immortal Emperor was not dead. Many cultivators were shocked at the thought of that. Humph! Yun Ting had a calm expression and said in a deep voice, "It's just a remnant consciousness left behind by this Immortal Emperor in the formation. Once the formation is dispelled, the remnant consciousness will be released. It's not a brilliant method. It's rare for anyone among you to be able to dispel the formation I left behind. However, I wonder who will be able to obtain the Jade Talisman in the main hall." After saying a few words, the voice turned weak. It was as though the remnant consciousness did not have much power left after countless years. "Right, there's one more thing." The Immortal Emperor's voice sounded once more and became intermittent. "There's another treasure hidden in this palace that's much better than the Jade Talisman. I wonder who the fated person will be." Before he could finish, his voice vanished and so did the invisible power that bound the cultivators. It's indeed the remnant consciousness of the Immortal Emperor. I didn't hear what he said at the end. It seems like there's another treasure in this palace that's even more precious than the Jade Talisman. After the Immortal Emperor's remnant consciousness disappeared, the crowd exploded into discussions. At that moment, although Su Zimo was expressionless, his heart was beating wildly. There was a high chance that the treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor was the bronze lantern with the word soul etched on it. To be fair, the bronze lantern was truly difficult to notice. It was not in the side hall where the divine weapons and dermic treasures were stored. Instead, it was in the side hall where the elixirs were stored. Furthermore, it was just an ordinary illumination object that was embedded on the walls and filled with rust. Even if anyone noticed it, they would not take a second look. If not for the strange activity of the hell suppression tripod previously, Su Zimo would not have noticed the bronze lantern even if he searched the side hall a few more times. Of course, that was only Su Zimo's guess. The treasure that the Immortal Emperor mentioned might not be the bronze lantern. The first thing that caught the attention of many cultivators was the unknown treasure mentioned by the Immortal Emperor. However, everyone reacted quickly. Nobody knew what treasure the Immortal Emperor was referring to, and it was a probability. However, the Jade Talisman was right in the main hall before them. Given the current situation, obtaining the Jade Talisman was more important. After a momentary silence, Yun Ting was the first to enter the main hall. Immediately after, many cultivators swarmed in and squeezed one another. Some of the cultivators were even pushed against the walls around the main hall, triggering the restrictions and dying on the spot. The stench of blood had already spread before the Jade Talisman was even seen. Summoning ethereal wings, Su Zimo flew above everyone's heads and entered the hall, looking over. The hall was dark with dust floating around. However, it was extremely spacious and it did not feel crowded at all for 10,000 cultivators to barge in. A palm-sized Jade Talisman hovered in midair at the front of the hall. It shone with a beautiful glow and the surrounding void was dyed red. Everyone caught sight of the Jade Talisman right away, but no one dared to act rashly. There were more than 10,000 Grade 9 Black Immortals here, and anyone who dared to advance would become a public enemy. Even the brash Fang Xian retracted his sharpness after his short exchange with Tang Zi and Yun Ting, and waited for an opportunity quietly. Su Zimo looked around and released his spirit consciousness, but he could not find any trace of Tang Zi. He knew that Tang Zi was definitely in the crowd. However, there were too many cultivators here and Tang Zi's concealment techniques were extremely brilliant. Even Su Zimo could not find her. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt a strong hostility and glanced over. On the other side were experts of the 4 immortal sects, the bald monk, Iron Tower Man, middle-aged Taoist and the blue-dressed woman. The 4 of them could not suppress him even after joining forces earlier on. At that moment, they already viewed Su Zimo as their greatest opponent. Foo-foo. Right then, a chuckle sounded from the front of the crowd. Since no one dares to step forward, I won't stand on courtesy. There was a hint of mockery in Yun Ting's laughter as he looked down on everyone. Before leaving, he even turned around and looked at Su Zimo deeply with an indescribable expression. It was both a provocation and praise. Su Zimo frowned slightly. He did not know Yun Ting nor did he have any interactions with the latter. He did not know why the latter suddenly noticed him. Yun Ting flew through the air and advanced slowly towards the Jade Talisman. Although he was proud, he did not dare to be careless. Who knew if there were any other dangers in this hole? Yun Ting had barely taken a few steps when a strange sound echoed in the hall. Chapter 1987, Bean Soldiers. Chapter 1987, Bean Soldiers. The sound was like countless pearls falling onto a jade plate, tinkling. If it was anywhere else, the sound would be crisp and pleasant. However, it was a little terrifying in the abandoned hall of the Emperor's tomb. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that cobblestone-sized beans were rolling down the stone steps in front of the hall with yellow mists surging within. At a glance, the beans were densely packed and there were at least thousands of them rolling down the stone steps. What's this? There seems to be a ghost circling around these beans. Everyone was on guard. In midair, Yun Ting frowned slightly and his eyes flickered in deep thought. As the prince of an immortal kingdom, he possessed the bloodline of the royal family. Although he was young, he was experienced and knowledgeable. Could it be? Yun Ting murmured softly. Piak, piak. Before the beans could roll in front of the cultivators, they shattered. Immediately after, yellow fog surged from the beans and transformed into sinister figures in front of everyone. Some of them wore tattered robes and had skinny faces, wielding horsetails whips. Some of them lost an arm and walked over unsteadily with a saber in one hand. Although half of their faces were gone, they were still murderous. All of those figures had one thing in common. The holes in their eyes were bloodshot and emitted a strange red glow with a menacing aura. It's otherworldly soldiers. They're otherworldly soldiers. No wonder we didn't see any otherworldly soldiers blocking the way. To think that they were all trapped within this hole. Why are these otherworldly soldiers coming out of the beans? Cries of surprises came from the crowd. Thousands of otherworldly soldiers appeared in the hall and blocked everyone's path with a rumbling malevolent aura. It was truly shocking. Foo-foo. In midair, Yun Ting's expression was calm, as though he had already guessed the scene before him. He chuckled. To think that I would be able to witness this divine power of turning beans into soldiers in this palace. That statement caused an uproar. Turning beans into soldiers was a supreme divine power. The cultivation realms of the cultivators present were not high and most of them were from the lower worlds. They had never seen it before. At most, they would only hear some legends. Some exalted immortals could summon heavenly soldiers with a handful of beans in the blink of an eye, and form a mighty army that was invincible. Now that many cultivators witnessed it personally, they truly realized that the soldiers that were summoned were not heavenly soldiers, but otherworldly soldiers. Kill! 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 Thousands of otherworldly soldiers roared and charged towards the cultivators with bloodshot eyes. Yun Ting was fearless as he chuckled. This must be your final test, right? Those evil things can stop others but not me. I will definitely get my hands on the Jade Talisman. The moment he said that, Yun Ting charged towards the otherworldly soldiers at the front. Before both parties made contact, Yun Ting closed two fingers and waved forward gently. Xing! A blazing light burst forth from Yun Ting's sword finger. It was extremely sharp and tore a huge hole in the otherworldly soldiers. The otherworldly soldiers at the front were sliced into two from the middle by the sword beam. That sword chi was even sharper than a true sword's edge. Yun Ting moved and entered alone. Your Highness, watch out! Many cultivators of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom shouted and charged forward. However, there was an endless stream of otherworldly soldiers and Yun Ting's figure was drowned before long. The hole was repaired and Yun Ting was isolated from the other cultivators. The cultivators standing at the outer perimeter could only see sword chi surging within the otherworldly soldiers. Everywhere it passed, people were overturned and broken limbs flew everywhere. Old Man Gu of the Yan-Yang Immortal Kingdom and Feng Xian led everyone behind them and charged forward. The cultivators of the four immortal sects swarmed forward as well. The other cultivators moved one after another and charged towards the otherworldly soldiers. The first person to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers would gain the initiative and have the best chance of obtaining the Jade Talisman. Although the otherworldly soldiers had torrential malevolent auras, their cultivation realms were limited and almost all of them were black immortals. In fact, there were even many low-level black immortals who were not much of a threat to everyone. Furthermore, these otherworldly soldiers had obvious flaws. Without an essence spirit, one could not use any divine powers or secret skills. What they relied on was their battered bodies. Su Zimo did not attack right away. Instead, he chose to watch coldly from the sidelines. It would be way too simple if the final test left behind by the Immortal Emperor was truly to turn beings into soldiers. Su Zimo's ears twitched and he caught a faint sound amidst the chaotic shouts in the hall. It was the sound of beans bouncing. Frowning slightly, Su Zimo leaped up and looked down from above. At the end of the hall, there were still many sparkling beans jumping and rolling down the stone steps. Thereafter, they split apart and transformed into otherworldly soldiers. In fact, some of the beans even transformed into gigantic birds, beasts and various strange living beings. Not only did the number of otherworldly soldiers not decrease after the charge, it was even increasing at a terrifying speed. There were endless beans at the end of the hall. If this continued, the number of otherworldly soldiers that would be born would not be tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands or even millions. What was even more frightening was that Su Zimo could clearly sense that the otherworldly soldiers that evolved later on were clearly stronger than before. Their bodies were more complete and their auras were terrifying. He could already see Earth Essence Realm otherworldly soldiers evolving from the beings. At this rate, there might even be grade 6 or 9 Earth Immortal or even Heaven Immortal level otherworldly soldiers later on. Even if the otherworldly soldiers did not have essence spirits and could not release their divine powers and immortal arts, the strength of their bodies as Earth and Heaven Immortals was enough to kill everyone. It was impossible to kill all the otherworldly soldiers. Furthermore, they had to fight for the Jade Talisman against the endless otherworldly soldiers. There must be a way to dispel this. Since that senior Immortal Emperor left that treasure behind to await a fated person, there was no way he would sever all paths forward. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and focused. At the end of the hall, the Jade Talisman hovered in midair and shone brightly. Light scattered and formed an empty space in the hall. Although the beans rolled down the stone steps, they circled around the area as though they were sentient. Su Zimo already had a plan. I have to break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers as soon as possible, and reach the area enveloped by the Jade Talisman. I must not get entangled with these otherworldly soldiers. At that thought, Su Zimo scanned the battlefield to search for Tang Zi. Although Tang Zi was good at concealment techniques, she could not hide her tracks against the dense otherworldly soldiers and was fighting on the battlefield, advancing slowly. There's an endless number of otherworldly soldiers here and those at the back are getting stronger. Don't linger in battle and charge over as soon as possible. Traveling through the air is less of a hindrance. Su Zimo sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Chapter 1988, Threat. Chapter 1988, Threat. Tang Zi knew the Void Thunder Manual and might have some connection to the Thunder Emperor. The Thunder Emperor had been suppressed for hundreds of thousands of years. Tang Zi was young and naturally could not be the Thunder Emperor's successor. However, she could be the disciple of the Thunder Emperor's successor. It was because of this relationship that Su Zimo could not watch Tang Zi be trapped to death by the otherworldly soldiers. Tang Zi was extremely smart as well. After fighting against the otherworldly soldiers for a while, she felt that something was amiss. Just as she was hesitating whether to advance or retreat, Su Zimo's voice sounded. Without hesitation, she leaped into midair and sped forward. As an assassin, she had always been alone and had no friends since she was young. Her parents died early and she trusted no one other than her master. However, for some reason, she felt an indescribable sense of trust after knowing Su Zimo for a short period of time. It was like a sixth sense. This person would not harm her. Therefore, she did not hesitate at all after hearing Su Zimo's voice transmission. Indeed, the resistance in the air was much less significant. Furthermore, from her vantage point, Tang Zi noticed the terrifying scene at the end of the hall as well. Dense beams rolled down and transformed into figures with terrifying auras with torrential malevolent auras. If she had continued to be entangled with the otherworldly soldiers below, it would be extremely difficult for her to leave the hall, let alone charge over. Charge to the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. Su Zimo's voice sounded once more. Tang Zi focused her gaze and saw that the area was indeed extremely strange. Be it the beings at the beginning or the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured, they seemed to be wary and avoided that area. Let's go! In that short period of time, Su Zimo arrived beside Tang Zi and extended his palm. Tang Zi knew that Su Zimo's movement technique was powerful and he wanted to charge over with her. However, at that moment, Tang Zi felt a sense of fluster when she saw Su Zimo's outstretched palm. She lowered her head slightly and avoided his gaze instinctively. Before long, Tang Zi calmed down and raised her head expressionlessly. Given my capabilities, I can reach there myself. Yun Ting and the others have already noticed something unusual. Don't let them beat you to it. At that moment, Yun Ting, who was at the front of the otherworldly soldiers, arrived in midair as well. With a single glance, he discovered how terrifying the Bean soldiers were. At the same time, Fang of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, the few experts of the four immortal sects and some paragons of the other sects and factions arrived in midair. All of them were peak experts of the Black Immortal Realm and noticed something amiss almost immediately when they encountered such danger. Black Immortals expended a lot of essence chi flying in the air, let alone fighting in midair. Therefore, most of the cultivators fought against the otherworldly soldiers on the ground. However, paragons and monster incarnates like Yun Ting did not have any reservations. They released their divine powers and flew through the air towards the Jade Talisman. Yun Ting seemed to have transformed into a sharp sword as he charged at the front at the fastest speed. Old Man Gu of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom and Fang Xian lagged behind slightly. After that were the experts of the four immortal sections. Tang Zi reached out and pushed Su Zimo gently, urging, "Hurry and leave. Don't worry about me." She knew that Su Zimo would definitely slow down and fall behind if he carried her. At that time, even if the two of them could rush over, they might not get anything. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before nodding. "Be careful." The moment he said that, a pair of gigantic golden wings appeared behind Su Zimo. Beneath the golden wings was a pair of almost transparent and relatively small wings. The rock and ethereal wings burst forth at the same time. Swoosh! Su Zimo transformed into a golden streak of light and charged forward at lightning speed. Right then, Yun Ting and the others at the front encountered some trouble as well. Towards the end, the otherworldly soldiers that were conjured became increasingly terrifying and powerful. The initial otherworldly soldiers had almost no ability to fly. But now, there were already some otherworldly soldiers and ferocious birds blocking in midair with a murderous intent. Yun Ting and the others had no choice but to stop and fight against the otherworldly soldiers. Naturally, their speed slowed down. As for Su Zimo, he relied on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, and even if there were otherworldly soldiers obstructing the way, he could pass through them rapidly. Most of the time, the otherworldly soldiers could not react in time and would only realize it later. The bald monk from one of the four immortal sects was swinging his golden fist and fighting against an otherworldly soldier. Suddenly, A sharp gust of wind sounded in his ears. Immediately after, he caught sight of a golden light flash past him from the corner of his eye. What's that? The bald monk was shocked. It's Xueqi from the great Jin Immortal Kingdom. The middle-aged Taoist recognized it. Back then, he had a deep impression of Xueqi crossing the lake with this movement technique. He surpassed me. The Iron Tower man roared and charged forward, pushing away the otherworldly soldiers in his way as he chased after Xueqi in huge strides. On the other side, Old Man Gu and Fang fought the entire way and followed behind Yun Ting. Flying through the air was draining to begin with, let alone fighting. Old Man Gu was already in his twilight years. Although his essence spirit was strong, his spirit consciousness attacks were useless against the otherworldly soldiers. He was already exhausted from the battle and panted heavily. Initially, he could still follow closely behind Yun Ting when he joined forces with Fang. But now, Old Man Ji's blood qi was weak and his combat strength was greatly reduced. Fang even had to take care of him most of the time. Old Man Gu had become Fang Xian's burden. Old Man Gu turned back and saw that the others from the Yang Immortal Kingdom were completely surrounded by the otherworldly soldiers. At that moment, they no longer had the chance to retreat even if they wanted to. A series of tragic cries sounded from the battlefield, causing one's scalp to tingle. He witnessed a cultivator being torn into two by otherworldly soldiers. Old Man Ji's face turned paler. Fang, you can't abandon me. As though he recalled something, Old Man Gu turned around hurriedly and threatened in a low voice. I'm the only one who can take you out of the Emperor's tomb. If you dare to abandon me and snatch the Jade Talisman alone, I'll send a message back immediately. At that time, even if you manage to return alive, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. Fang said as he defended against the otherworldly soldiers, Exalted Immortal, you're thinking too much. I am even hoping that you can put in a good word for me in front of your highness. How can I be disloyal? It's good that you know. Old Man Gu harumphed. Right then, Fang expression changed as he noticed Xueqi catching up behind them. Exalted Immortal, we have to stop this person and not let him surpass us. Fang hollered and charged forward right away. Chapter 1989. Killing with a Borrowed Knife. Chapter 1989. Killing with a Borrowed Knife. There was nothing wrong with stopping Xueqi. However, Old Man Gu felt that something was amiss. Only, the situation was dangerous and tense on the chaotic battlefield, and he did not have the energy to think about it carefully. Furthermore, Fang had already charged forward first and Old Man Gu could only follow. In midair. Relying on the extreme speed divine power of the rock's wings, Xueqi shuttled through the obstruction of many otherworldly soldiers without slowing down at all as he approached Yun Ting, who was at the front. Suddenly, a figure appeared from the side and threw a punch with an extremely ferocious aura. The surrounding air turned scorching hot from the friction of that punch. That punch did not have any additional movements. It was a simple straight punch, but it sealed all of Xueqi's advancement paths. Xueqi's expression was unchanged as he ignored the punch. Instead of showing any signs of weakness, he charged forward viciously. Boom! The two collided with a deafening bang. Xueqi's figure appeared and paused in midair. An expert. Furthermore, it was a top-tier expert. Right now, the Green Lotus True Body had already grown to the peak of Grade 9, and could take on connate black-grade dermic treasures without using his blood qi. Apart from his shocking physique, the fact that he could be blocked after releasing the extreme speed divine power and ethereal wings required extremely sharp eyes. Even the paragons of the four immortal sects he had fought previously did not have such methods. Xueqi glanced sideways and saw a black-robed man standing in midair not far away. It was the person who fought against Tangzi previously. Fang shuddered as well and took half a step back with a dark expression, placing a hand behind his back. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds, he cultivated a mysterious cultivation technique, the divine elephant breathing technique, and was invincible. Every single time he attacked, he possessed the power of a divine elephant and could destroy the world and crush stars. If this cultivation technique was cultivated to its limits, it could even obtain the power of thousands of divine elephants and be invincible on land, suppressing all living beings. The fact that he could survive the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and ascend with an indestructible body was proof of how strong he was. Even after ascending to the upper world, none of the cultivators of the same cultivation realm were his match in melee combat or physical combat, let alone in the lower worlds. During his clash with Su Zimo earlier on, neither of them used blood chi. It was a pure physical fight. However, he was disadvantaged. The palm behind his back trembled slightly and felt a sharp pain. He had to circulate his blood chi secretly to resolve the pain and heal the hidden injuries on his palm. Fang Xian thought for a moment and realized that he might not be a match for Su Zimo even if he used his blood chi. Even if he could gain the upper hand with his bloodline phenomenon, it would be difficult for him to suppress Su Zimo within a short period of time. Furthermore, his bloodline phenomenon was one of his greatest trump cards and he must not use it unless he had no other choice. His trump card was prepared for Yun Ting. At that thought, Fang Xian arrived beside Su Zimo in a flash. This person's physique is very strong. I'll fight him head-on while you attack from behind. On the other side, Old Man Gu had just arrived when he heard Fang Xian's voice transmission. Before he could think further, Fang Xian had already attacked. Boom! Boom! Fang Xian channeled his blood chi and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Tsunami blood. Filled with blood chi, Fang Xian's body expanded rapidly and rose continuously. In the blink of an eye, he grew into a small giant that was 30 feet tall. Boom! 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 Fang Xian swayed his massive body and let out a loud bang with every step he took in midair. Filled with a savage aura, he charged over like a divine elephant. The charge of a divine elephant was the most terrifying. On land, no living being could stop him. Su Zimo looked at Fang Xian who was charging over fearlessly with a burning gaze. His feet stomped on the ground and his knees pushed forward. His entire body was stretched like a sprinting horse. That was a killing move from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Worried that his Green Lotus True Body's bloodline would be exposed, Su Zimo did not use his blood chi. Even so, the aura of that move was not weak at all. Exalted Immortal, now's the time. Fang Xian sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness and growled. Without hesitation, Old Man Gu walked forward instinctively and conjured a dermic seal with both hands, smashing it towards Su Zimo's back. Just as Fang Xian and Su Zimo were about to collide, a sinister glint flashed through Fang Xian's eyes as he suddenly dispersed his blood chi and stopped in his tracks. Fang Xian's body withered rapidly like deflated skin and returned to normal. He did not choose to fight Su Zimo head-on. Instead, he suddenly stopped and retreated. Su Zimo was slightly stunned. Right then, Old Man Ji's attack descended. Su Zimo harumphed coldly. Without even thinking or turning back, his entire arm suddenly went limp like a divine elephant's trunk and flung backwards. The change was extremely sudden without any warning. Initially, Fang Xian and Old Man Gu were the ones who joined forces to stop Su Zimo. With Fang Xian's sudden retreat, Old Man Gu was the only one left facing Su Zimo. Old Man Gu wanted to dodge and retreat but it was too late. His eyes widened as he looked at the departing Fang Xian. Initially, his eyes were filled with surprise, doubt and confusion. In the end, everything was taken over by rage. You! Old Man Gu merely said a single word before the dermic seal he conjured with both hands was shattered by Su Zimo's arm. Immediately after, the arm whipped Old Man Ji's head and shattered it. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Although Old Man Ji's essence spirit was also at the Earth Essence realm, he did not have the chance to release an essence spirit secret skill. There were many cultivators present, but there were less than 2 who could withstand Su Zimo's move. Su Zimo frowned and quickly understood that he had been used as a weapon. However, that did not affect him much. It did not matter if he killed an exalted immortal of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. However, the sinister nature of Fang Xian made him wary. This person was troublesome to deal with. Thank you. Arriving beside Old Man Gu, Fang Xian removed his storage bag and put it away. He smiled sinisterly at Su Zimo and continued charging forward. As a monster incarnate of the lower worlds who had ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he was prideful and would not bow down to others so easily. Furthermore, Old Man Gu was only a servant of the prince. Deep in his bones, the old man had a condescending attitude and had never taken Fang Xian seriously. Although Fang Xian was respectful on the surface, he was already displeased internally. However, no matter how bold he was, unlike Su Zimo, he would not dare to kill an exalted immortal in front of everyone. That was the reason for the scene earlier on. To him, this old man was already a burden and was useless. Abandoning him, Fang Xian relaxed and chased after Yun Ting. Chapter 1990, Void Cruising Sword. Chapter 1990. Void Cruising Sword. From Fang Xian's scheming earlier on, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was a cunning old fox. Not only did he plot against Old Man Gu, he even made Su Zimo his weapon. While getting rid of his problem, he cleanly avoided any implication. Even if he returned to the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, he would not be punished. After a slight delay, Su Zimo flapped his wings and continued speeding in the direction of the Jade Talisman. At that moment, more and more beings shattered and transformed into powerful living beings. Towards the end, almost all of them were Grade 9 Black Immortals or even Earth Immortal otherworldly soldiers. A massive sea beast floated over and opened its mouth, almost devouring the entire hall. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and transformed into a golden streak of light, charging over. Gulp! The sea beast devoured Su Zimo in huge mouthfuls. Su Zimo did not stop in his tracks. Instead, he charged even more ferociously, wanting to penetrate the massive body of the sea beast. At that moment, Yun Ting was far ahead of everyone else. Su Zimo did not have much time to waste on this sea beast. Poof, poof, poof. A series of sounds came from the stomach of the sea beast. A golden light shot in from the head of the sea beast, penetrating its chest and organs. Towards the end of his charge, Su Zimo's strength was also lacking. Thankfully, he was within the body of the sea beast and was hidden by its gigantic skeleton. Su Zimo channeled his blood chi without worrying about being discovered and exposing the secret of the Green Lotus true body. Boom! Channeling his blood chi, Su Zimo released an extremely terrifying power once more and passed through the sea beast like lightning. Su Zimo overtook Fang Xian again and chased after Yun Ting, who was at the front. Fang Xian cursed internally. However, there was nothing he could do when he saw that. Under the divine power of turning beings into soldiers, the true paragons and monster incarnates among the cultivators had already stood out. At that moment, the paragons were roughly divided into groups. Right at the front was Prince Yun Ting of the Zhixian Immortal Kingdom. His body was strong and every single punch and kick carried an extremely sharp edge. There were almost no otherworldly soldiers that could stand in his way. Of course, as the otherworldly soldiers grew stronger, his speed slowed down as well. Second was Su Zimo. Su Zimo's method was even more violent and ferocious. He charged forward without decreasing his speed and the distance between him and Yun Ting decreased. Third was Fang Xian and Tang Zi. Both of them had different methods and displayed different divine powers. Fang Xian's strength was tough and ferocious while Tang Zi's movement technique was illusory and unpredictable. Fang Xian's position was slightly ahead while Tang Zi was slightly behind. The paragons of the four immortal sects were in the fourth group. Although the four of them were behind Su Zimo, Yun Ting and the others, the difference was not that great. They were almost right on Tang Zi's heels. At the back were some of the best cultivators. There weren't many of them, only dozens of them. They were scattered and fought individually. Although those people were also in midair, it was already extremely fortunate if they could escape alive, let alone break through the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers. The consumption of essence chi was already extremely terrifying just by flying in midair, let alone fighting against otherworldly soldiers in midair. Unless they were absolute top-tier monster incarnates, there was no way they could make it through. There were many cultivators who entered the Emperor's tomb but only a few truly stood out. Some shop cultivators had already begun to retreat, prepared to escape from the hall when they saw that the situation was bad. However, there were countless otherworldly soldiers and it was almost impossible for them to escape. Yun Ting was getting closer and closer to the Jade Talisman. He was less than 200 feet away. As long as he crossed those 200 feet, he would be able to reach the light of the Jade Talisman. That distance was merely a few breaths for him. The Jade Talisman was within reach. Finally, a smile curled on Yunting's lips. He turned around without stopping in his tracks. Glancing at Su Zimo behind him, he raised a finger smugly and waved it gently in front of him. Su Zimo was smart and understood what that action meant instantly. Yunting was saying, "I'm the number one, you can't beat me." Su Zimo's expression was calm and he maintained his speed. However, a mocking look flashed through his eyes. At the same time, Yunting suddenly heard a screeching sound, as though a sharp weapon was piercing over and arrived instantly. Yunting was alarmed. Before the attack truly descended, he felt a sharp pain on his back. This meant that the person who attacked was far stronger than him. Without hesitation, Yunting's figure swayed and suddenly turned blurry. His figure faded as though he had escaped into the unknown void and was no longer in this world. Void Cruising Sword. Even in the entire upper world, that movement secret skill was one of the top movement techniques and had already touched on the Daoan technique of space. Unless it was extremely dangerous, Yunting would not release Void Cruising Sword. Chi! A sharp bone spear missed. Yunting turned around and could not help but frown when he saw who attacked. If those they encountered previously could be called otherworldly soldiers, this person before them could definitely be called an otherworldly general. The person had no head and rode on a crane, wielding a bone spear. He was shrouded by a rich malevolent aura that was almost corporeal. This otherworldly general was already at the level 7 Earth Essence realm. This could already be considered as a high-level Earth Immortal. Although this otherworldly general did not have an essence spirit and could not release divine powers and secret skills, the power he displayed earlier on was enough to kill Yunting. Even with Yunting's pride, he had to deal with it wholeheartedly and did not dare to be careless. This was the final obstruction. As long as he could break through the obstruction of the otherworldly general, he would be able to reach the area enveloped by the light of the Jade Talisman. With that delay, Su Zimo had already caught up. From the corner of his eye, Yunting saw that in front of Su Zimo, there were also high-level Earth Immortal otherworldly generals. Furthermore, there were 2 of them and they blocked him in a triangular manner. Yunting heaved a sigh of relief. There was no way Su Zimo could charge over in a short period of time with such terrifying otherworldly generals blocking him. But soon, Yunting realized that something was amiss. Although there were 2 terrifying otherworldly generals blocking the way ahead, Su Zimo's speed did not show any signs of decreasing and was extremely fast. This is bad. It's that movement technique. Although Yunting did not witness it personally, he heard some cultivators mention it earlier on. According to those cultivators, Su Zimo relied on a strange movement technique that was almost like teleportation to cross the lake and pluck the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Indeed. Just as Su Zimo was about to collide with the swords of the 2 otherworldly generals, his figure suddenly flashed. When he reappeared, Su Zimo had already left the 2 otherworldly generals behind. True Dragon 9 flashes. The path ahead was smooth without any obstacles. Su Zimo turned around and looked at Yunting, who was not far away, with a fake smile. Similarly, he extended a finger and waved it in front of him. You! Yunting was enraged. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had never suffered such provocation and humiliation. Ha ha! Su Zimo burst into laughter and turned to leave. Chapter 1991. Spatial Superposition. Chapter 1991. Spatial Superposition. The wings behind Su Zimo flapped and he transformed into a golden streak of light, entering the radius of the Jade Talisman's glow in the blink of an eye. The otherworldly soldiers that were chasing seemed to have sensed something, and were extremely wary of the light emitted by the Jade Talisman. They stopped in their tracks and dispersed. The Jade Talisman was right in front of him. Up till now, Su Zimo did not know what secrets the Jade Talisman held. However, for the 3 immortal kingdoms, for immortal sects and countless sects and factions of the divine firmament mainland to flock to it, this Jade Talisman was definitely not simple. Without hesitation, Su Zimo rose into the air swiftly and grabbed the Jade Talisman high above. As long as he could get his hands on the Jade Talisman, it would mean that he had the advantage. be it to fight or retreat, he could seize the initiative. Furthermore, he no longer had to fear the otherworldly soldiers with the Jade Talisman in his hands. Su Zimo was extremely fast and extended his palm. Just as he was about to grab the Jade Talisman, an extremely cold and murderous aura burst forth from behind him. A sword beam tore through the air at an astonishing speed and slashed towards Su Zimo's outstretched arm. That killing intent was way too terrifying. In that instant, Su Zimo felt as though he had fallen into an ice cellar and his limbs went cold. If not for the fact that he was the Green Lotus true body and his blood chi was strong, that killing intent would have frozen his bloodline. The killing intent was so strong that even the heaven and earth slaying sword arts he cultivated could not compare to it. Could it be? A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. Now that he was faced with a strong enemy and the situation was critical, he did not dare to be distracted or think too much. That sword chi was truly stunning. It was sharp, as though it could sever everything in the world, penetrate the void and destroy everything. Although the Green Lotus true body could take on a connate black-grade dermic treasure head-on, he could not defend against that sword strike. Su Zimo could almost predict that if he continued to reach for the Jade Talisman, his entire palm would be severed by the sword chi before he could even touch it. It's Yun Ting. Without turning back, Su Zimo already guessed who attacked. Yun Ting was the only one who could release such a terrifying sword chi. Su Zimo released the true Dragon 9 flashes and crossed the obstruction of the otherworldly soldiers first, but Yun Ting was not weak either. Disregarding the consumption of essence chi, he released Void Crossing Sword continuously to break free from the entanglement of the otherworldly general and charged over right after. Yun Ting was bent on getting his hands on the Jade Talisman and he would not allow anyone to lay their hands on it. Therefore he did not hold back at all when he stopped Su Zimo this time round and released his human-slaying sword chi. Prior to this, although Yun Ting released sword chi that was sharp and could slice through metal and jade, those were only the most ordinary sword chi he had cultivated. The human-slaying sword chi was much more terrifying than that. Su Zimo's expression was calm and his eyes were unmoved. He had experienced too many situations like this and it was nothing much. He retracted his palm and his figure flashed, disappearing from the spot. At the level 9 Black Essence realm, Su Zimo could already release the true Dragon Flash 3 times in a short period of time. This was his second flash. When Su Zimo reappeared, he was already behind Yun Ting. Without hesitation, Su Zimo raised his palm and slapped the top of Yun Ting's head. This time round, Su Zimo did not hold back either and released the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Her fair and tender palm expanded instantly, as though it had transformed into a gigantic millstone, suppressing Yun Ting. Its aura was shocking and it was so strong that the air exploded with a loud bang. Not only did he avoid Yun Ting's sword chi, he even reversed the situation and counterattacked. This change was extremely sudden. Su Zimo descended behind Yun Ting without any warning and the latter had no time to react. He did not even have time to turn around, let alone escape. Good timing. Instead of panicking, Yun Ting hollered and his blood chi surged in rage. Suddenly, Yun Ting's black hair stood on end and shot into the skies like countless swords, emitting an extremely sharp aura. Amazing! When he saw that, Su Zimo praised from the depths of his heart. Although Yun Ting was not old, his cultivation in the Tao of the sword was way too deep. He had already fused the sword Tao into every part of his body, and had even cultivated it to the tip of his hair. Even his hair was a killing weapon that was extremely sharp. Even divine weapons and dermic treasures could not compare to it. Yun Ting's long hair stood on end, resembling countless flying swords. Boom! The Great Chaos Essence Palm descended and collided with Yun Ting's long hair with a loud bang. Although the hair looked soft, its sharpness was terrifying and wanted to pierce the gigantic millstone above his head. Creak! Creak! The millstone crushed and spun, colliding against Yun Ting's long hair with an ear-piercing sound. Clang! Clang! A part of Yun Ting's black hair snapped and the sound of a bowstring snapping could be heard. At the same time, Su Zimo felt a sharp pain in his palm. His long hair was like a sword and destroyed the Great Chaos Essence Palm. Even Su Zimo was stunned by Yun Ting's move. Yun Ting's long hair snapped and the Great Chaos Essence Palm dissipated at the same time. Su Zimo did not continue fighting and his figure flashed once more. The third flash. This time round, when Su Zimo reappeared, he was already beside the Jade Talisman. The Jade Talisman was within reach. Given the methods displayed by Yun Ting, it would be difficult to secure victory within a short period of time. Yun Ting was truly the most troublesome and powerful opponent he had encountered since he ascended to the upper world. If he continued fighting, it would be easy for other changes to happen when Fang Xian and the others caught up. At that thought, Su Zimo made a prompt decision to retreat and get his hands on the Jade Talisman first. Don't even think about getting your hands on the Jade Talisman with me around. The moment Su Zimo reached out, Yun Ting's voice sounded in his ears. Su Zimo ignored Yun Ting's threat. No matter how fast the latter was, he could not compare to the true Dragon 9 flashes. Su Zimo reached out and his expression changed slightly. He missed. The Jade Talisman was right in front of him but his grab missed. The Jade Talisman was still there motionlessly but Su Zimo did not manage to grab it. It was as though there was a layer of space between his palm and the Jade Talisman. Spatial superposition? Su Zimo frowned. Although spatial superposition was only a lesser divine power, it was extremely mysterious and difficult to comprehend. Space and time divine powers were extremely difficult to comprehend. Once comprehended and released, they would indeed be extremely powerful and shocking. Time-related divine powers such as time like a saber had always been one of Su Zimo's strongest killing moves. Although the spatial superposition released by Yun Ting earlier on was not lethal, it created a layer of space between Su Zimo and the Jade Talisman, causing his grab to miss. With that single move, Yun Ting had already arrived opposite Su Zimo. The Jade Talisman was right in front of them. However, if Su Zimo wanted to get his hands on the Jade Talisman, he would have to get through Yun Ting. It was the same for Yun Ting. Chapter 1992, Fight. Chapter 1992, Fight. This person is very strong. Su Zimo looked at Yun Ting who was not far away and murmured internally. After ascending to the upper world, apart from Tang Zi, Yun Ting was the only one who could make him release the true Dragon 9 flashes thrice in succession without any success. Furthermore, Su Zimo had a feeling that even if he could release a fourth flash, he would not be able to suppress this person. This was an extremely strong opponent that could even threaten him. Ever since he started cultivating, there were not many cultivators who could make him feel threatened. In Tianhuang mainland, there were only a few people. More importantly, there was a special connection between him and this Prince Yun Ting. Previously, when Yun Ting released that terrifying sword Qi, a guess flashed through his mind. However, the situation was critical and he could not divert his attention to think about it. Now, Su Zimo was even more certain of his guess as he looked at Yun Ting who was emitting a sharp aura. Seems like you've guessed it. Yun Ting chuckled. Su Zimo asked, human-slaying sword art. There was a high chance that only the human-slaying sword art could possess such a terrifying killing intent that was even stronger than the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts. That's right. Yun Ting did not hide anything and said frankly, I cultivated the human-slaying sword art while you cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art. There have long been rumors that the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts were left behind in the lower worlds. To think that the person who cultivated the heaven-slaying sword art would ascend to the upper world and even bump into me. This is the will of the heavens. This is an opportunity. Yun Ting was in high spirits and his words revealed immense confidence. The three great sword arts have been separated for many years. Even the heavens want to fuse them into one again. The heaven-slaying sword art has already appeared. If nothing goes wrong, the earth-slaying sword art will appear soon as well. I'll search for the earth-slaying sword art after I snatch your heaven-slaying sword art. At that time, when the three great sword arts are fused, I, Yun Ting, will become the #1 sword in Divine Firmament Mainland, 9 Firmament Immortal Domain and even the entire heavenly world. In the future, I'll head to the sword world and challenge all the sword Dao experts there. I, Yun Ting, will use my sword to defeat all experts in the world and reign supreme for all eternity. With every word Yun Ting said, the sharpness of his body would turn sharper and his aura would strengthen. Yun Ting was accumulating strength. Although every single sentence he said seemed like he was muttering to himself, he was actually accumulating momentum for himself and exerting pressure on Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. It had been a long time since he had encountered such a terrifying and powerful opponent. The last person who gave him such pressure was Monk Daming. It's true that it is heaven's will to want to fuse the three great sword arts into one. Suddenly, Su Zimo smiled and said slowly, however, this might not be your opportunity. Yun Ting's intention to fuse the three great sword arts was shared with Su Zimo. Yun Ting glared at Su Zimo and nodded with a smile. You're right, we have the same thoughts. Therefore, even if we don't fight for the Jade Talisman, we'll definitely fight. His gaze was sharp as a sword and the glint in his eyes could even cause one to feel a sharp pain. If not for the fact that Su Zimo possessed the Illumination and Netherglow Divine Stones and cultivated two visual techniques, he would not have been able to meet Yun Ting's gaze. However, Su Zimo knew very well that if he avoided Yun Ting's gaze, the latter would definitely strike with the most ferocious attack given his senses. That was the terror of Yun Ting. On the other side, Yun Ting's evaluation of Su Zimo increased as well. If it was anyone else, they would not have been able to withstand his gaze. To think that this person who had ascended from the lower worlds could meet his gaze without being disadvantaged. Although the two of them were merely facing off on the surface, they were actually testing the waters. Any slight fluctuation or breathing or abnormal pulse would result in a shocking battle. Both parties were scrutinizing the other, carefully searching for openings. Among the otherworldly soldiers, Fang Xian and the others were still advancing with all their might. When Fang Xian and the others arrived, something else would definitely happen. There was not much time left for the two of them. Very good. Yun Ting was the first to speak and said in a deep voice, You're indeed a good opponent and worthy of my full strength. The moment he said that, Yun Ting's pupils constricted like needles. Thereafter, two extremely sharp sword lights burst forth with a chilling aura. The two sword lights streaked through the void and even let out a sword hum. Without witnessing personally, it would be difficult to imagine that such terrifying sword lights were released from the eyes. Visual technique, Frost Soul Sword Eye. The two sword lights burst forth and the surrounding void seemed to freeze as the temperature dipped. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit without holding back and released illumination and nether glow. However, something unexpected happened. Illumination Eye was released normally, and released a blinding beam of light that charged towards the two sword beams. However, there was no reaction from the Netherglow Eye. When Su Zimo's spirit consciousness entered his left eye, it did not cause any ripples, as though it had encountered some obstruction. Previously on the lone island, the Netherglow Stone absorbed a tremendous amount of power of darkness and it was difficult for Su Zimo to activate it with his current essence spirit power. Of course, that power did not disappear and was hidden in the Netherglow Stone the entire time. If it was released one day, it would create an extremely terrifying scene. Boom! The two sword lights collided with the blazing beam of light and the ice melted, but they were reborn before long. If illumination and netherglow were released at the same time, they would definitely be superior to the Frost Soul Sword Eye. However, at that moment, there was only Illumination Eye. In this clash of visual techniques, Su Zimo was disadvantaged. Layers of frost formed on his body rapidly with a chilling intent. Boom! Yun Ting suddenly attacked and crossed the void, arriving instantly with a punch. Su Zimo had just been covered in frost and his movements were slightly affected when Yun Ting attacked. Any openings or opportunities would not be missed in a fight between top monster incarnates. All the momentum that Yun Ting had accumulated earlier on was gathered on that punch. It was torrential and unstoppable. In fact, Su Zimo felt suffocated. Before the punch arrived, his cheek was already in pain from the wind. He was way too strong. Against that punch, Su Zimo had nowhere to dodge. He punched in reverse, as though a gigantic seal was formed, towards Yun Ting's fist. Bang! The fists collided and the sound of flesh and bones grinding echoed. The power of the two of them was released completely in that punch. The two of them were evenly matched in terms of physique. But soon, Su Zimo felt a sharp pain on his fist. Yun Ting's sword Dao had already been cultivated to every part of his body. His brows, hair and even the hairs on his body were sharp killing weapons. Apart from the burst of his physical strength, Yun Ting's punch was also sharp. Although the sharpness of the sword Dao could not break through the defense of the Green Lotus True Body, it stung Su Zimo. Chapter 1993. Change. Chapter 1993. Change. Both parties shuddered from the clash, and it was hard to tell who was stronger. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. He took advantage of the moment when the two of them were fighting to change his move at the last moment, turning his fist into a palm. The Great Chaos Essence palm was formed and crushed towards Yun Ting. The moment Su Zimo changed his move, Yun Ting changed his move as well. He closed two fingers and conjured a sword finger, turning his fist into a sword. The two of them had a strange chemistry and displayed unparalleled combat talent, unwilling to let go of any opportunity. The Great Chaos Essence palm was thick and steady with immense strength. His sword finger was sharp and could slice through metal and jade. The palm and sword collided with another loud bang. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks appeared on the gigantic millstone formed by the Great Chaos Essence palm. The sharpness released by Yun Ting's sword finger shattered inch by inch as well. The two of them swayed slightly before retreating rapidly to distance themselves, so that they could resolve the power that surged into their bodies. Although the fight between the two of them seemed short, it was almost at the peak of a grade 9 Black Immortal's strength. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Ever since the Green Lotus True Body grew to grade 9, no one could defend against the power of the Green Lotus True Body's body even if he did not use blood qi. Be it the paragons of the four immortal sects or Fang earlier on, they were weaker. Yun Ting was the only one who could fight the Green Lotus True Body head-on without being disadvantaged. Ever since Su Zimo ascended to the upper world, the Green Lotus True Body had grown rapidly. He cultivated a taboo mystic classic like the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, and had already cultivated to the peak of grade 9 after absorbing utmost treasures such as the Sal Tree Leaf and 7 Glow Immortal Ginseng. He was only a step away from advancing to grade 10. Even so, the Green Lotus True Body could not gain the upper hand. In terms of strength, Yun Ting's physique was not weaker than his. In battle, Yun Ting displayed extremely terrifying talent and techniques as well. Yun Ting was only 200 years old and was too young. His potential was limitless. Up till this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo was already more than 2,000 years old. While Su Zimo was pondering, Yun Ting was even more shocked. Initially, Yun Ting thought that Su Zimo specialized in the heaven-slaying sword art and movement technique. However, he had not expected that there would be someone in the upper world who could defend against his physical strength. From the moment he was born, a phenomenon accompanied him. In order to help him temper his body, his father had searched for countless treasures and elixirs. He cultivated 10 top-tier body-tempering cultivation techniques. When he was 100 years old, he fused the 10 body-tempering cultivation techniques with the human-slaying sword art and underwent a complete transformation, attaining greater mastery of his body and bloodline. Even ordinary Earth Immortals could not defend against his sword finger. Yun Ting had not expected that someone of the same cultivation realm could match him. Good, good, good. Yun Ting nodded repeatedly with a delighted expression. The sword intent in his eyes intensified and burned. Su Zimo's aura rose continuously as well with a surging battle intent and a burning gaze. Neither of them would retreat against such a rare opponent. Yun Ting's appearance triggered Su Zimo's pride as well. Battle! Almost at the same time, the two of them shouted and their figures swayed as they collided once more. Bang! 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 Clang! Clang! Su Zimo's fists, palms, claws, feet, shoulders, elbows, knees and every other part of his body could release extremely terrifying killing moves with unparalleled strength. Every single attack was accompanied by a fervent killing intent. Those methods were fused with the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness and the combat techniques of the Azure Dragon to form a combat technique that was suitable for his Green Lotus True Body and possessed shocking might. Yun Ting was not weak either. His fingers, hair, sleeves, fists and every single move could release a sharp edge. No matter how ferocious Su Zimo's attacks were, he could resolve them. The two of them fought in melee combat and fought with speed. It was almost impossible to tell their figures apart as the sound of collisions could be heard continuously. Melee combat was the most dangerous. However, the two of them fought fiercely and within dozens of breaths. They had already exchanged hundreds of blows. Neither of them could gain the upper hand and it was a stalemate. Bang! The two of them clashed once more before retreating and breathing slowly. At that moment, it revealed how terrifying their stamina was. Neither of them had expended too much energy after the fight. Both of them merely had heavy breathing and slightly rosy faces. You should be proud to be able to defend against so many of my moves. Yunting raised his head slightly. Use the heaven-slaying sword art. Let me see what level you've cultivated it to. All right, as you wish. Su Zimo sneered. I want to see how powerful the legendary human-slaying sword art is to be ranked at the top of the 3 great sword arts. The moment he said that, Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and conjured a sword art with his left hand. His aura changed and he emitted a cold killing intent. The skies above the hall were filled with stars, but at that moment, they lost their trajectory and were in chaos. Yunting looked at the stars in the firmaments and murmured, when the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Not bad. Not bad. As he said that, Yunting raised his palm slowly. A ball of sword light condensed in his palm. If his palm represented a world, the sword light was akin to shattering the entire world. Yunting's killing intent intensified. This is the human-slaying sword art. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly. Indeed. He sensed a shuddering aura from the sword light that seemed like it could destroy the world. Yunting nodded slightly. Indeed, this is the human-slaying sword art. However, this is not the peak of its power. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Even though it was not the strongest manifestation of the human-slaying sword art, he already felt a sense of threat and trepidation. Yunting paused for a moment before changing the topic. He chuckled and said confidently, however, it's enough to deal with your heaven-slaying sword art. Is that so? Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he released the heaven-slaying sword art with all his might. Su Zimo waved his sword finger and instantly, 108,000 sword chi spewed out from his fingertip. They were dense and blazing, covering the skies. His other hand was empty the entire time, ready. If the heaven-slaying sword art could not defeat him, he would condense his sword finger and release the earth-slaying sword art. Yunting flipped his palm and sent the sword light in his palm out as well. Compared to Su Zimo's 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi, the sword light seemed much weaker. However, it was filled with a terrifying aura. Once the sword light exploded, it would definitely be earth-shaking. Just as the 2 great sword arts were about to collide, a change happened. On the other side, a black figure charged towards Su Zimo with lightning speed and a murderous aura. The figure came from Su Zimo's side at an extremely fast speed. It closed in rapidly and punched towards Su Zimo's temple. It was incomparably ferocious and the air tore with a buzzing sound. This person's timing was perfect. This was the moment where Su Zimo had no time or energy to deal with other unforeseen circumstances after attacking. Prince Yunting, let me help you kill this lad. The intruder laughed with a sinister smile hidden in the darkness. Fang Xian of the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom. Chapter 1994. Tacit Understanding. Chapter 1994. Tacit Understanding. Su Zimo and Yunting were fighting, and neither of them dared to be distracted as they gave it their all. Neither of them noticed that Fang Xian had already charged out of the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers. Fang Xian was brilliant and strong. He could definitely be considered as a top monster incarnate among the Black Immortals and could even fight against Su Zimo or Yunting. Even in a head-on fight, he might not lose to the two of them. However, Fang Xian was scheming and crafty. In this chaotic and complicated situation, he would definitely not choose to fight Su Zimo alone. The best way was to join forces with Yunting. Yunting had a noble status. Apart from his strength, as a prince, he might possess other unfathomable trump cards. If he joined forces with Yunting to get rid of Su Zimo, the rest would not be a threat. Even if he could not get his hands on the Jade Talisman in the end, the benefits of befriending Yunting would be unimaginable. As someone who had ascended from the lower worlds, he would not let go of any chance to change his fate and could even resort to unscrupulous means. Therefore, Fang Xian's attack this time round was thunderous and did not give Su Zimo any chance to escape. Although Su Zimo's spirit perception warned him first, the pressure and threat Yun Ting gave him was way too great. The current situation was equivalent to him fighting 1 against 2. Furthermore, both of them were top-tier experts of the Black Essence realm. The pressure on Su Zimo increased exponentially. It had been a long time since he had been forced into such a dangerous situation by a cultivator of the same cultivation realm. If Su Zimo were to release all his trump cards, he would naturally be able to neutralize their attacks. However, his Green Lotus true body would not be able to remain hidden. As long as he used his blood qi, Prince Yun Ting would definitely recognize him given the latter's experience. But now that the situation was critical, he would definitely be severely injured if he did not use his blood qi or even his bloodline phenomenon. Su Zimo had no way out. Instantly, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Thereafter, a resolute look flashed through his eyes as he prepared to attack with his full strength. Right then, a change happened in the situation. Fang Xian's sudden appearance not only shocked Su Zimo, even Yun Ting was slightly stunned. Immediately, Yun Ting's expression was enraged and killing intent flashed through his eyes. He was too proud and disdained to join forces with others. It was rare to meet an opponent like Su Zimo. If he wanted to win, he would do it openly. Furthermore, Fang Xian was not joining forces with him. It was an ambush. In fact, Yun Ting felt like he was being used. Given his pride, he would definitely not allow Su Zimo to die in front of him like this. In a flash, Yun Ting glanced at Su Zimo and his spirit consciousness moved. The human-slaying sword light that was about to collide with the heaven-slaying sword qi suddenly dissipated into essence qi and dispersed in the hall. Yun Ting retracted his attack at the last moment. In a fight, if one party suddenly stopped and the other party did not or could not stop in time, it would be equivalent to committing suicide. That choice was way too risky. It was equivalent to Yun Ting exposing himself to the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword qi. The moment Yun Ting dispersed the human-slaying sword light, his other hand conjured a sword art with a cold killing intent and slashed towards Fang Xian. The human-slaying sword qi burst forth and was aimed at Fang Xian. You! When Fang Xian noticed that, he was shocked and enraged, cursing internally as a lunatic. He had schemed and deduced countless possible changes, but he had not expected Yun Ting to make such a choice. On the other side, Yun Ting's change of move surprised Su Zimo as well. Initially, he was surrounded by 2 top experts and was in a dangerous situation. But now, the situation was reversed because of Yun Ting's choice. Instead, he had a chance of becoming the biggest winner. As long as he did not stop, even if the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword qi could not kill Yun Ting, they could severely injure him. At the same time, Yun Ting had already attacked Fang Xian and released his human-slaying sword qi. If Su Zimo turned to deal with Fang Xian, there was a high chance that he would severely injure the latter. With that, he could get rid of 2 of his greatest opponents and threats. Su Zimo did not even look at Fang Xian at the side. He merely looked at Yun Ting deeply and his spirit consciousness moved. He chose to stop as well and disperse the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword qi. Yun Ting was prideful and stopped because of that. Su Zimo was an upright person and would not hit someone when they were down. The 2 of them had different personalities and backgrounds and had never met before. Earlier on, they were still fighting intensely. However, at this moment, they had a strange tacit understanding. Initially, Su Zimo was prepared to condense the earth-slaying sword art with his empty palm. However, at that moment, his killing intent was triggered. This Fang Xian was way too sinister. It was like a viper hiding in the dark, never knowing when it would appear and deal a fatal blow. Instantly, Su Zimo channeled his spirit consciousness and the gray fog in his palm surged, forming a saber that emitted a shuddering aura. The greater divine power, time is like a saber. Against Fang Xian's punch, Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and slashed with the time saber in reverse. In the blink of an eye, the situation changed and Fang Xian was surrounded by 2 monster incarnates, Su Zimo and Yun Ting. Indeed, Fang Xian was faster. However, even if he could hit Su Zimo on the head, it would be difficult for him to escape from the killing sword chi behind him. Fang Xian did not have the guts to use his life in exchange. He had ascended through the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation and did not want to die yet. Instantly, Fang Xian could only retreat. Right then the time saber slashed over. Although the gray saber was strange, Fang Xian did not feel much threat. Furthermore, compared to the killing sword chi on the other side, the gray saber seemed even more ordinary. Most of Fang Xian's energy was spent on dealing with the human-slaying sword chi. He took a deep breath and condensed at least a dozen lesser divine powers in front of him, most of them defensive divine powers. On the other side, he waved his sleeves as he retreated towards the time saber. Bang! The saber was shattered by him with ease and his sleeves were not damaged at all. How could this be? The fact that he was able to neutralize the gray saber with ease alarmed Fang Xian instead. However, it was too late. The power of time had already surged into his body. Initially, Fang Xuanyan was only slightly more than 10,000 years old. For a black immortal with a lifespan of 100,000 years, he was considered young. However, his lifespan was reduced by 60,000 years after he was slashed by the time saber. In the lower worlds, the time saber could sever 30,000 years of lifespan with a single slash. In the upper world, when released with heaven and earth essence chi, its power would increase exponentially and a single slash could sever 60,000 years of lifespan. Initially, Fang Xian was only a black-robed young man. In the blink of an eye, he missed his peak and was now more than 70,000 years old. Fang Xian was not wrong. Indeed, the time saber could not threaten his life. However, the impact of losing 60,000 years of lifespan was way too great for him. It was difficult to accept the difference and loss of time in a short period of time. Furthermore, now that Fang Xian was more than 70,000 years old, in terms of physique, blood chi, essence, spirit and body, he had already missed his peak and was now going downhill. Chapter 1995. Death of Fang Xian. Chapter 1995. Death of Fang Xian. Although Su Zimo's slash did not manage to kill Fang Xian directly, the impact on him was way too great. Fang Xian's figure swayed slightly and for a moment, many openings appeared in the dozens of divine powers and secret skills condensed in front of him. Due to the time saber, a full 60,000 years of his lifespan disappeared and his essence spirit fluctuated violently. It was already incredible that the divine powers and secret skills did not dissipate on the spot. That was also proof of Fang Xian's terrifying control. Even if he was struck by the time saber, he could calm down right away and try his best to adapt to his current body. If it was just the time saber, it would naturally not be a threat to Fang Xian. However, the moment Fang Xian's lifespan decreased, the human-slaying sword chi descended. Poof, poof, poof. The dozens of divine powers and secret skills in front of Fang Xian shattered one after another, and could not defend against the killing power of the human-slaying sword chi. If Fang Xian had not been struck by the time saber, he would not have been in such a sorry state after condensing the dozens of divine powers and secret skills. However, his essence spirit was unstable after being struck by the time saber and flaws appeared in the dozens of divine powers and secret skills. Coupled with the fact that the human-slaying sword chi was way too terrifying and killing intent was at its limits, the dozens of divine powers and secret skills were penetrated by it with ease. The sharpness of the human-slaying sword chi surged towards Fang Xian, wanting to slice him up. Ah! At that moment of life and death, Fang Xian roared with a menacing expression and chopped down with his left arm using his right hand. Fang Xian's hand cleaver was extremely sharp as well and sliced off his left arm in a single motion. Fresh blood gushed out and floated in the air without dissipating. It's not that easy to kill me. Fang Xian growled and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a secret skill from the divine elephant breathing technique at the cost of losing an arm. Bang! The severed arm exploded and many flesh and bones gathered in front of Fang Xian, forming a blood-colored elephant tusk with a torrential blood stench. Under Fang Xian's control, the elephant tusk smashed towards the human-slaying sword chi. Clang! It was a clash of sharpness. An ear-piercing sound echoed, as though metal was colliding. Crack! 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 Cracks appeared on the blood-colored elephant tusk and after a brief pause, it shattered. Although the human-slaying sword chi had faded significantly, it still emitted a chilling killing intent that was enough to kill any black immortal. Even Fang Xian's severed arm and secret skill could not defend against a single human-slaying sword chi. However, that single delay gave Fang Xian a rare breather. Swoosh! Fang Xian channeled his bloodline and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Immediately after, a gigantic divine elephant appeared behind Fang Xian and swung its trunk, roaring into the skies. On both sides of the divine elephant's trunk were 6 gigantic white tusks that were smooth as jade and sharp. That was Fang Xian's bloodline phenomenon, the 6-tusked divine elephant. One of the innate divine powers that Su Zimo cultivated came from the 6-tusked divine elephant. As though it sensed the threat as well, the divine elephant swung its trunk and whipped towards the incoming sword light. Poof! The sword light was sharp and sliced the divine elephant's trunk into 2. The human-slaying sword chi was way too ferocious. It penetrated the dozens of divine powers and secret skills of Fang Xian, destroyed the secret skill condensed by his severed arm and even shattered his bloodline phenomenon. Of course, after colliding with the bloodline phenomenon, the human-slaying sword chi dissipated as well. Clutching his broken arm, Fang Xian retreated and distanced himself from Su Zimo and Yun Ting rapidly. He was overjoyed and his eyes were filled with the exhilaration of surviving a calamity. This was the combined attack of Su Zimo and Yun Ting. Fang Xian was proud to be able to escape from their killing moves and survive. Apart from Fang Xian, there was probably no one else in the Emperor's tomb who could defend against the 2 killing moves earlier on. Ha 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 ha! Fang Xian laughed wildly and shouted, "I've already said that you guys can't kill me." Although he lost an arm this time round, he did not suffer any setbacks after this battle. Instead, he comprehended much more. This was an experience at the brink of life and death that was extremely difficult to replicate. Once he returned to the Yen-Yang Immortal Kingdom, he would definitely advance to the Earth Essence realm and become an Earth Immortal. At that time, his lifespan would increase to 200,000 years and the loss of 60,000 years would be nothing. Earth Immortals could regrow severed limbs and so his severed arm could be regrown. This brush with life and death was a rare experience and ordeal for him. As long as he could get out alive, his combat strength would increase significantly. This was a true monster incarnate. As long as they could survive the test of life and death, they could grow rapidly. Su Zimo glanced at Fang Xian indifferently and lamented internally. If this person were to leave, he would definitely become a strong foe and a huge calamity. However, he was in front of a great enemy at the moment and could not split himself into 2 to chase after Fang Xian. That was unless he intended to let Yun Ting have the Jade Talisman. Yun Ting knew that as well. He looked at Fang Xian and smiled gently, shouting, "You're quite capable to be able to defend against my human-slaying sword chi. I'll spare your life today. Scram." Hee hee. Fang Xian sneered. "I'll remember the favor of losing my arm and lifespan today. If we meet in the future, I'll definitely thank you guys properly." After saying that, Fang Xian prepared to leave. He had lost an arm and his lifespan was reduced. In order to dispel the human-slaying sword chi earlier on, he had almost used all his trump cards and could no longer fight for the Jade Talisman. Right now, the most important thing was for him to escape while he still had the strength to do so. Just as he turned around, a cold glint flashed. Fast. It was too fast. There was no time to react at all. Fang Xian felt his throat turn cold. Immediately after, a warm and sticky liquid sprayed out continuously in a scarlet manner. That was his blood. With a horrified expression, Fang Xian reached out in a panic and clutched the wound on his throat. However, blood continued flowing through his fingers and could not be stopped. His throat was almost severed by some sharp weapon. Not far in front of Fang Xian, a purple figure appeared. Tang Zi was expressionless as she waved her hand gently. Blood dripped down from her sharp fingernails and they became squeaky clean once more. Croak, croak. Fang Xian pointed at Tang Zi with an enraged expression, as though he wanted to say something. However, he could only let out a strange sound. "You can't leave." Tang Zi flicked her fingernails and said indifferently. The 5 fingernails retracted slowly as though they had never appeared. Her fingers were slender like green onions and her jade-like hands were lean, They did not look like hands that could kill. Brup. Brup. Fang Xian wanted to speak again. However, the moment he opened his mouth, blood began to flow and he could not say a single word. The anger in Fang Xian's eyes gradually turned into fear. He could clearly sense the loss of life in his body that could not be stopped or reversed. He realized that he was not going to survive. Even if his essence spirit could leave his body, it would not last long. A strong sense of indignance surged in his heart. He managed to defend against the combined attack of Su Zimo and Yun Ting. To think that he could not avoid that final fatal attack. Chapter 1996. Heaven Slaying, Earth Slaying. Chapter 1996. Heaven Slaying, Earth Slaying. Fang Xian glared at Tang Zi with bloodshot eyes. Although he looked weak right now, as long as Tang Zi leaned forward, he could still launch his final counterattack before his blood chi deteriorated completely. However, as a top assassin, Tang Zi was way too cautious. It was a fatal attack without any entanglement and she maintained a relatively safe distance from Fang Xian. She did not need to do anything else. As long as she looked at Fang Xian quietly and waited patiently, the latter would definitely die. Her fingernails were sharp and lightning was hidden on them. Fang Xian's torn throat could not be healed at all. Fang Xian could only wait for death. Su Zimo felt emotional when he saw that. Previously, Fang Xian took the initiative to attack Tang Zi and the outcome was undecided. To think that Fang Xian would still die in Tang Zi's hands in the end. That was the terror of a top-tier assassin. Of course, Fang Xian's death was not unjustified. This was equivalent to Su Zimo, Yun Ting and Tang Zi, 3 peerless monster incarnates attacking. There was probably no black immortal in this world who could survive the encirclement of these 3 people. In that short period of time, Fang Xian's eyes dimmed and his face turned pale. His body began to sway and he could not hold on any longer. A light shone on Fang Xian's head and an essence spirit left his body. He could only abandon his body. However, his essence spirit did not fly far before it was tainted by the curse of the Emperor's tomb. Its aura was weak and dimmed as it gradually dissipated. Fang Xian was invincible in the lower worlds and had passed the 4 of 9 heavenly tribulation. In terms of potential and endowment, he was not much inferior to Su Zimo. However, he still died here and no one would remember him in the future. This was the cruelty of the upper world. Because of Fang Xian's background, Su Zimo thought of himself and felt emotional. However, Yun Ting's expression was calm. As a prince of the upper world, although he was very young, he was long indifferent to such things. Throughout history, there had been too many monster incarnates like Fang Xian who died. To Yun Ting, those who died early were nothing. Only true experts could rise continuously and stand tall. Yun Ting looked at Su Zimo and suddenly asked, "Why did you stop earlier on?" He was asking about the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi that Su Zimo condensed initially before dissipating. Su Zimo said, "Since you chose to change moves, I won't hit you when you're down either." Phew! Yun Ting chuckled and raised his brow. "You're thinking too much. Since I dared to change moves, I'm naturally confident that I can withstand your heaven-slaying sword chi. However, you're different from me. If I hadn't changed my move earlier on, you would have died." Su Zimo smiled as well. "That's unnecessary. Even if you hadn't changed moves, I would have been able to escape unscathed from you and Fang Xian's combined attacks." Although the 2 of them stopped attacking for the time being, they still competed fiercely through words. Su Zimo was not lying either. Of course, even if he could escape unscathed, he would definitely expose the secret of the Green Lotus true body. Yun Ting pouted. "Your trump card has already been exposed. That time divine power is indeed not bad. However, since I've already seen it and am prepared, it's no longer a threat to me." Pausing for a moment, Yun Ting glanced at Tang Zi who was not far away and said proudly, "The 2 of you can come at me together. I'll take it alone." Yun Ting was way too conceited. He did not care to join forces with others, nor was he afraid of them joining forces against him. Tang Zi was expressionless. For her, she had no qualms about bullying with numbers. For assassins, They only pursued results. She would not feel burdened either. Even if Yun Ting did not say it, she would find an opportunity to get rid of him. Right then, 4 figures approached rapidly and surrounded Tang Ziyi. The moment Fang Xian died, the 4 paragons of the 4 immortal sects had already charged through the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers. The 4 of them were extremely smart and could see through the situation. Su Zimo and Yun Ting were like 2 ferocious tigers. The wisest thing for them to do right now was to let the 2 ferocious tigers fight and kill one another. As for the 4 of them, if they could resolve the latent danger of Tang Zi, they could sit by and watch the tigers fight, controlling the situation and becoming the eventual victors. If Su Zimo and Tang Zi were to join forces to kill Yun Ting, the 4 of them might not be a match for Su Zimo and her. The 4 of them conversed and were prepared to join forces to kill Tang Zi first. Although Tang Zi's expression was unchanged, she was slightly shocked. The 4 of them were unlike the cultivators of the 10 absolute hell. They came from the 4 immortal sects and were each more troublesome to deal with than the other. If it was a one-on-one fight, she was confident that she could kill any of them. Even against 2 of them, she could guarantee that she would not be defeated. However, she could barely protect herself against the encirclement of 4 experts, let alone assassinate Yun Ting. Female patron, stop running around. Fight us. The bald monk said with a smile and waved his wide sleeves, attacking first. Immediately after, the Iron Tower Man, middle-aged Taoist and blue-dressed woman attacked one after another. The 4 of them joined forces and released a torrential storm of attacks that was suffocating. Although the situation was critical, there was no hint of panic on Tang Zi's face. With a calm expression, she shifted and fought against the 4 paragons. On the other side, Yun Ting shook his head gently. Unfortunately, this lady can't even protect herself. She can't help you anymore. I alone am enough to defeat you. Su Zimo's gaze intensified and his aura began to climb. All right. Yun Ting's aura intensified as he said slowly, let's see what else you have. Su Zimo pinched his sword fingers with both hands and channeled 2 completely different sword arts that were filled with a terrifying killing intent. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to hide the earth-slaying sword art as a backup plan. However, when he saw how terrifying the human-slaying sword chi was earlier on, he did not dare to hold back and release the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts at the same time. Above the firmaments, the stars were shifted out of alignment. On the fingertip of Su Zimo's right hand, the 108,000 heaven-slaying sword chi gathered continuously, forming a heaven-slaying sword that was intertwined with sword chi. Su Zimo's left sword finger moved and the ground trembled, cracking continuously as a gigantic soaring serpent condensed from sword chi burrowed out. The skies split open and a gigantic blue dragon popped its head out, glaring at Yun Ting murderously with its horns. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts were conjured at the same time and Su Zimo pushed them to their limits. The entire hall could sense endless killing intent that threatened to destroy the world. The 4 paragons that surrounded Tang Zi were secretly alarmed when they saw that. The auras of the 2 great sword arts were way too terrifying. Extreme killing power. If that was the case for the 4 paragons outside the battlefield, it was hard to imagine the pressure Yun Ting was under. If the 4 of them saw Yun Ting's face, they would be shocked. Yun Ting was actually smiling. He could not conceal the joy and ecstasy in his eyes. Finally, Yun Ting could not hold it in any longer and reared his head in laughter with an excited expression. Chapter 1997. Human Slaying Sword Intent. Chapter 1997. Human Slaying Sword Intent. Yun Ting was truly delighted. The heaven and earth slaying sword arts were both in the hands of a single person. Furthermore, they were in front of him. This was a gift from the heavens. What were opportunities? This. As long as he defeated Su Zimo, he would be able to obtain the 2 sword arts and fuse them together. Good, good, good. After laughing, Yun Ting nodded repeatedly. It's best that you master the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. This way, I don't have to hold back. I'll let you witness the true might of the human slaying sword art. The stronger Su Zimo was, the more excited Yun Ting was. In his eyes, all his opponents were his sword testing stones and would only make his sword Dao sharper and unstoppable. You've only mastered one of the three great sword arts. No matter how strong the human-slaying sword art is, how can it fight against heaven and earth? Su Zimo conjured the heaven and earth slaying sword arts with both hands and sneered at the energetic Yun Ting. Ha 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 ha. Yun Ting stood in midair and was surrounded by countless sword chi. His black hair danced as he laughed. Today, I'll tell you why the human-slaying sword is the top of the three great sword arts. Even with the heaven-slaying sword hovering above his head, Yun Ting's aura was still unparalleled and could not be suppressed by the soaring serpent and blue dragon. With every word, the sharpness of Yun Ting's body intensified, as though he wanted to break through the world and sever the void. Yun Ting's figure turned blurry and was faintly discernible in midair. In its place was a sharp sword with torrential killing intent. Looking at the current Yun Ting, Su Zimo gradually understood. He finally understood why the human-slaying sword art is the top of the three great sword arts. Right then, Yun Ting's voice sounded once more. Although the expert who created this sword art is not from the heavenly world, he is still a human. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. When the earth's killing intent is released, the dragon snake shall rise. When the human's killing intent is released, heaven and earth shall topple. The intention of this sword art is to fight against heaven and earth with the body of a human. Everywhere it points, even heaven and earth shall topple and give way. After saying that, Yun Ting's figure vanished completely, and in its place was a sword that was about to tear heaven and earth apart with extreme killing power. Apart from its killing power, the human-slaying sword art contained an unyielding sword intent that rose against the tides and could not be suppressed by heaven and earth. Although the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts were strong, they were way too inferior in terms of intent and were countered by the human-slaying sword art. The human-slaying sword slashed forward. Boom! There was no sound of metal clashing when the three great sword arts collided. Instead, there was a loud bang. Crack, crack, crack. Immediately after, a series of cracking sounds could be heard from midair. Cracks appeared on the heaven-slaying sword, soaring serpent and blue dragon. Although the light on the human-slaying sword dimmed significantly, it was still filled with an extremely sharp edge that could destroy the world. The human-slaying sword art was way too strong. Even the heaven and earth-slaying swords could not defend against the might of the human-slaying sword. Swoosh! The human-slaying sword charged through the encirclement of the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts and descended from the skies, slashing toward Su Zimo. Although the entire process sounded slow, it happened in an instant. After destroying the two sword arts, the human-slaying sword descended on Su Zimo's head without any pause and did not give him any time to react. At that moment, Yun Ting was slightly stunned as well. Unknowingly, a gigantic turtle shell had formed in front of Su Zimo. It was filled with divine powers and shone brightly. There were complicated ravines on the turtle shell that shone mysteriously. Innate divine power, spirit turtle shield. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo did not have time to activate that innate divine power. However, after he sensed the sword intent contained by the human-slaying sword art, he realized that the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts could not defend against it at all. It was a complete suppression of strength, aura and intent. Therefore, after releasing the two sword arts, Su Zimo did not pause at all and forcefully activated the spirit turtle shield. Divine powers and secret skills such as the heaven and earth-slaying sword arts as well as the spirit turtle shield consumed a lot of essence spirit. If it was any other black immortal, their essence spirits would not be able to withstand the release of those three divine powers and secret skills in a short period of time and would collapse on the spot. Thankfully, Su Zimo's essence spirit had already reached the Earth Immortal realm. Furthermore, he was a Green Lotus essence spirit and could withstand many divine powers and secret skills in a short period of time. The Spirit Turtle Shield was the strongest defensive technique in the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the Great Wilderness. The human-slaying sword art was the peak of killing power. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the human-slaying sword art struck the Spirit Turtle Shield and let out a deafening bang. The entire hall shook. On the other side of the battlefield, the four paragons and Tang Zi were alarmed. The sword and shield collided and released a blinding light. The five of them merely glanced from the corner of their eyes from afar, and felt a sharp pain. The four paragons were shocked and felt relieved at the same time. Thankfully, the four of them did not participate in the fight between the two of them. Otherwise, who could defend against such an attack? The light of the collision of the sword and shield engulfed the two of them instantly. In fact, the five of them did not even know who had the upper hand in this clash. After a while, the light gradually dissipated and Su Zimo and Yun Ting reappeared. The two of them were still standing where they were. The sword and shield had vanished and they did not seem to have moved at all. Only those who were still alive in the hall knew how terrifying the fight between the two of them was. It should be a draw. Tang Zi heaved a sigh of relief. Although she was facing four strong foes, she knew in her heart that the one opposite Su Zimo was even more terrifying. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The human-slaying sword art was much stronger than he had imagined. Even after being exhausted by heaven and earth-slaying sword arts, the human-slaying sword art could still tie with the spirit turtle shield. This meant that if he merely released the divine power of the spirit turtle shield, he would not be able to defend against the sharpness of the human-slaying sword art. On the other side, although Yun Ting looked calm, his heart was in turmoil. The human-slaying sword art had returned fruitless and was blocked. Up till this point of his cultivation, there had never been anyone of the same cultivation realm who could defend against the sharpness of the human-slaying sword art. The person before him was completely unharmed against the human-slaying sword art. Indeed, you surprised me. Yun Ting composed himself swiftly and spoke slowly. However, pausing for a moment, Yun Ting changed the topic. If that's all you've got, you'll definitely lose today. Confidence returned to Yun Ting's eyes as he raised his head proudly. He was not lying. Even if he could not release the human-slaying sword art again within a short period of time, he still had many powerful trump cards that he could rely on. However, to Yun Ting, Su Zimo was at his wit's end. As the prince of an immortal kingdom, he had a noble status and unlimited resources. That was why he had so many powerful methods. However, Su Zimo was someone who ascended from the lower worlds after all. Without the heaven and earth slaying sword arts as well as the turtle shell divine power or strange movement technique, what else could this person have left? Chapter 1998. Might of Sword Blood. Chapter 1998. Might of Sword Blood. The situation in the hall was gradually becoming clearer. The only ones who truly broke out of the encirclement of the otherworldly soldiers were Su Zimo, Yun Ting, Fang Xian, Tang Zi and the paragons of the four immortal sects. There were less than 10 people in total. Now that Fang Xian was dead, the 7 of them were the only ones left to fight for the Jade Talisman. The other cultivators no longer had a chance. To be precise, it was already extremely fortunate if those cultivators managed to survive. The number of otherworldly soldiers increased and there was no way to kill them all. Furthermore, the otherworldly soldiers that awakened later on were stronger and the black immortals in the tomb were sliced like vegetables. There were more than 10,000 cultivators who entered the hall but now, there were less than 1,000. Blood chi filled the hall and corpses were strewn everywhere. Some cultivators with foresight had already begun charging out of the hall. The otherworldly soldiers seemed to be restricted by something and could not leave the palace. As long as they escaped from the palace, they would be able to survive. Beneath the Jade Talisman, Su Zimo faced off against Yun Ting. The paragons of the four immortal sects surrounded Tang Zi and fought intensely without stopping. Although the battle between the 5 of them was not as earth-shaking as the fight between Su Zimo and Yun Ting, it was still dangerous. While Tang Zi was best at assassination, it was difficult for her to unleash it in such a battle. She was surrounded by 4 paragons and could not break out at all. Her combat strength was definitely superior to any of the 4 paragons individually. However, the difference between 1 and 4 was too great. Up till this point of the battle, Tang Zi had only been contending against the 4 paragons with her unfathomable movement techniques and immense combat talent. Zi had been dodging and defending the entire time without retaliating. The 4 paragons had great chemistry with one another. Even if someone revealed an opening, others would make up for it swiftly. If Tang Zi were to retaliate forcefully, there was a high chance that she would be severely injured. The current situation was a little strange. Among the 7 of them, Su Zimo and Yun Ting were definitely superior in terms of combat strength. However, the two of them could fight at any moment and it might benefit others instead. The situation was changing rapidly and all 7 of them had a chance of snatching the Jade Talisman. Yun Ting swept his gaze across the battlefield at the side before looking at Su Zimo and saying slowly, "I'm determined to get my hands on the Jade Talisman as well as the heaven and earth slaying sword arts. I won't give you another chance." Yun Ting was confident that he was invincible and there was a hint of cynicism in his expression when he attacked previously. It was only now that he was serious and fully prepared. Splash! A tsunami surged from Yun Ting's body with a terrifying might. Tsunami blood. Clang! Clang! Immediately after, the sound of sword chi clashing echoed through the tsunami, piercing through metal and cracking rocks with a sharp edge. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. Yun Ting's blood chi was way too strong. This was not just a simple tsunami blood. Every single drop of blood in Yun Ting's body contained an extreme killing intent that could destroy the world. Sword blood flowed through Yun Ting's body. It was no exaggeration to say that a single drop of his blood could kill a grade 9 black immortal. The pressure on Su Zimo and Yun Ting increased exponentially. Blood chi surged through the void through Yun Ting's body. Streaks of sword scars appeared on Su Zimo's green robes and his cheeks were in pain. Before Yun Ting attacked, Su Zimo already felt like he was about to be torn apart and drowned by the blood chi. Sensing that blood chi, the Green Lotus bloodline became restless as well. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo suppressed the Green Lotus bloodline in his body. The creation Green Lotus was the only one in the world and was extremely important. Back then, it even attracted an assassination attempt from an immortal king of the heavenly world. Su Zimo did not dare to be careless. Unless it was a life-and-death situation, he would definitely not expose his Green Lotus bloodline. "You've lost." The moment Su Zimo suppressed his bloodline, Yun Ting sensed something and attacked with a bright gaze. That was the terror of top-tier experts. Any slight change could not escape their senses. Su Zimo suppressed his bloodline and his aura naturally weakened. Yun Ting seized the opportunity and released a ferocious attack. Yun Ting closed 2 fingers with both hands and conjured a sword art, as though he was waving 2 swords with a murderous aura. The moment he attacked, dozens of sword lights enveloped Su Zimo completely. After releasing his blood chi, Yun Ting's combat strength increased exponentially and he almost crushed Su Zimo in a single move. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.